The smile on her face grew even more captivating. This was Fu Hang, a devout believer who saw her as his goddess. What was love? What was a true home? Finding someone you loved? Or choosing someone who loved you? In that moment, Shen Qingluan felt like she had found the answer. Here, Shen Qingluan's watery, charming almond-shaped eyes became even more alluring. She deftly pulled a pack of cigarettes from her bag and pushed it across the table. Fu Hang's eyes twitched. A gleaming gold package, Supreme 1972? The luxury brand among cigarettes? Rumor had it they were impossible to buy on the open market. Though he hadn't actively sought them, he'd only seen them on forums. You don't have to spend so much. Fu Hang's face instantly flushed crimson, his gaze becoming more evasive. Open it, try it. This is your real gift. Shen Qingluan suddenly leaned in, and with a flick of her wrist, as if by magic, produced an exquisite kerosene lighter. Fu Hang's gaze froze. This was clearly a high-end, handcrafted piece, and a custom one at that. The relief carving on it was unique. A close-up of a captivating woman's face, a woman with a pair of enchanting almond-shaped eyes. Fu Hang was so moved, he was on the verge of tears. Qingluan, what kind of game are you playing? This isn't normal. You're acting very strangely. This is scaring me. I just took leave to have a meal with you. Seriously, my leave slip is only approved until 8 tonight. There's a dorm check after 8. Being late means a deduction from my 9S conduct score, okay? I'm not afraid of writing self-criticisms, but our teacher Chin has been showing a tendency for corporal punishment lately. It's really hard. He already did it 3 times today. Even a grandmaster can't take it. No, maybe not. You don't like the smell of smoke. Fu Hang's body flinched backward, the delight in his eyes making his apprehension even more real. Fu Hang's evasive movement made Shen Qingluan's heart clench, but she sharply caught the flicker of joy in his eyes. How could a man who had loved her for 6 years give up just because of a few words from her? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said those things that day. Shen Qingluan put down the lighter, slowly retreated to her seat, tilted her head, pursed her lips, her delicate nose angled towards Fu Hang in an intriguing way. Don't, Qingluan, I know. Fu Hang was thrown into a panic by this sudden wave of desolation. No, you don't know. Shen Qingluan suddenly burst out, her eyes welling up with tears. Fu Hang was thoroughly flustered. He shot up from his chair in alarm, hands raised unconsciously as if to comfort her, yet afraid of being too abrupt. Damn it, maybe I should forget about those 10 billion? Who knows if it'll even make money in 3 years? What if Miss Li messes up and loses it all? Li Weiyong doesn't look like she has a head for business, does she? Otherwise, why would her family kick her out? Not even letting her into the company? Fu Hang hesitated internally. Shen Qingluan's state was too precarious. Her current expression was 7 parts genuine, 3 parts feigned, but the crucial thing was the genuine part was very real. Weren't you determined to become a top-tier team master with ideals, moral integrity, solid knowledge, and exquisite skills? Why does your smile seem so unfamiliar to me now? Fu Hang, I was wrong. Please forgive me, okay? This apology, choked with sobs, was filled with sincerity. Fu Hang's unconsciously raised hands slowly lowered. He stood straight, just staring blankly at Shen Qingluan. Out of a simp's instinct, at this moment, he should have moved closer, gently cradled her head against his chest, and softly stroked her hair. Nothing needed to be said, but he didn't. He was genuinely a little scared. Shen Qingluan's apology was sincere. The reason I said such heartless things that day was because I felt that all your efforts for me over these years weren't worth it. Shen Qingluan lowered her head, covering her face with her hands, her neatly manicured nails pressing against the corners of her eyes near her nose. This maneuver allowed tears to flow down her fingers, effectively preventing her eyeliner from smudging when she wasn't crying too intensely. Fu Hang didn't come over to hug her. He was truly hurt. That made sense. If his heart wasn't genuinely broken, how could he have sung Heart Like a Dagger's Pierce with such raw emotion? Fu Hang, can we start over? Shen Qingluan suddenly looked up, no longer caring about her soon-to-be smudged eyeliner, and stared straight at Fu Hang. A trace of desolation flickered in Fu Hang's eyes, and his body even involuntarily retreated a small half-step. He turned his head, not daring to meet her gaze, as if looking into those tear-filled eyes would make him lose control. This expression sent a pang through Shen Qingluan's heart. He was scared. He was actually scared after she confessed her feelings. A wave of regret surged from the bottom of her heart. Shen Qingluan wanted to rush over, hug Fu Hang tightly, and then kiss him. But Shen Qingluan restrained herself. She couldn't. Once she switched from passive to active, their roles might change in the future. That wasn't what she wanted. Today's goal wasn't just to win back Fu Hang's heart, but to return everything to how it was before. I'm planning to resign. Shen Qingluan pulled a napkin from the table and dabbed her eyes firmly. She couldn't push too hard. A little detour was needed. Resign. Fu Hang's attention was successfully diverted. Qin Yuchu probably told you about me and the CEO. Shen Qingluan suddenly smiled with an air of release, her tear-streaked eyes looking particularly helpless when she smiled. Fu Hang remained silent, the bitterness at the corners of his mouth and her tear-stained smile reflecting each other. Believe it or not, there's nothing between me and the CEO. We don't even know each other. Shen Qingluan took a deep breath and explained stubbornly. Fu Hang opened his mouth, his stark white teeth and crimson tongue a vivid contrast. Do not know whether you know the CEO or not, but why are you suddenly resigning? Can a game booster like me afford you? I don't want you to misunderstand, so I've decided to resign. Fu Hang's hand under the table clenched tightly. My FING plus? Are you serious? From her clear eyes, Fu Hang saw determination. Shen Qingluan wasn't joking, nor was this some kind of tactic. She was really going to resign. What was she doing? You're the HR supervisor at Yuanbu Trade now, right? Enjoying VP-level benefits. Do you know Yuanbu's current market value? Do you know Yuanbu's prospects under Assistant Qin's leadership? You want to resign? If you just hang in there a bit longer, $1 million annual salary isn't a dream. Qingluan, don't be impulsive. Love can't put food on the table. Love isn't just about romance and moonlit nights. Its end is firewood, rice, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, tea, endless chores, a snoring bald man, and a brat who draws Hello Kitty on custom wallpaper with limited edition lipstick. Fu Hang looked up, staring at Shen Qingluan in astonishment. His slightly trembling lips spoke of disbelief, of entanglement and obsession, of hesitation and confusion. It was like kneeling before Buddha for 500 years, and Buddha, in his compassion, treated all beings as straw dogs. You awaken in despair, ready to plunge into demonhood. But at the moment you turn, Buddha speaks. He says, "You're here? Bro." Shen Qingluan inwardly rejoiced. Just as I thought. Fu Hang's throat bobbed, like an old woman taking her last breath. This time, Fu Hang's emotions were completely genuine, without a trace of pretense. It's over. My VIP client has lost rank. Dropped from king to bronze. Has she been possessed? Wang Haitao didn't even do much to you, did he? He didn't do anything, right? Wang Haitao, you just wait. I'll make sure you never have a peaceful day for the rest of your life. I'll torture you with the most vicious and despicable means known to man. Wait, Wang Haitao. Fu Hang seemed to have caught on to a key point, but his thoughts hadn't quite expanded yet. Shen Qingluan put down a napkin. Seeing Fu Hang's conflicted expression, a thought suddenly struck her. It's not just because of my heartless words that day. It's also what happened to me that night. No man would ignore a scene like that. Actually, another reason I want to resign is, that day, Mr. Wang Haitao originally said he wanted to discuss business with me. Shen Qingluan suddenly covered her face with her hands and burst into helpless tears. A light bulb suddenly popped up above Fu Hang's head, a 2,700 lumen LED, borderless, flashing one. System, my VIP client, was almost violated by that beast. It wouldn't be too much for me to help her get some compensation, right? Requesting appropriate compensation within reasonable limits is permitted, the system's cold voice replied. Then compensate her with Hingyu Group? Fu Hang's eyes lit up. Proposal approved. Threshold limited to 49% of Hengyu Group's shares. Oh ho! Fu Hang's bronchial tubes tied themselves into a bow, and his toes inside his leather shoes flashed a V sign. Qingluan, don't be like this. Fu Hang exclaimed with heartache, no longer restraining himself. He strode around the table and firmly grasped Shen Qingluan's shoulders. The 10 billion pie from the milk tea shop couldn't mend your Dow heart. Huh? What about tens of billions in Hengyu's 49% shares then? With this move, not only can Yuchu keep her 20% stake, but Hengyu Group can also be put to good use. You don't have to wait 3 years for 49% of the shares. When 5 billion crashes down, will it allow you to achieve nirvana, reopen the sacred path, and attain sainthood on the spot? Qing, Wan. Afterward, they ate dinner with restraint, yet it was exceptionally warm. Fu Hang even, at Shen Qingluan's persuasion, smoked a cigarette in the private room, using the lighter engraved with Shen Qingluan's portrait, smoking a Supreme 1972. Though, to be honest, Fu Hang felt the 25 yuan ones tasted better. That evening, Shen Qingluan escorted Fu Hang back to his rented apartment. Of course, just like when Fu Hang escorted Shen Qingluan home, she only took him to the entrance of the residential complex. Just as teacher Qin was about to roll up her sleeves to check the dorms, at 8:03 p.m., she received a video call from Fu Hang. It wasn't that Fu Hang was being considerate of Shen Qingluan's feelings, but rather, the Grandmaster was feeling a little guilty. Of course, it was possible other organs were feeling weak too. The video call began with Fu Hang meticulously showing his rented apartment, from the bedroom to the bathroom, the wardrobe, and under the bed. Anyway, the tour was incredibly detailed. Fu Hang even used the wide-angle lens. Finally, the video call ended appropriately when Her Majesty the Empress switched to little dodgy mode. No more data, really, not a single bit left. Thank you for your patronage, couldn't even recharge it. Of course, during the middle of the call, Mr. Fu issued the latest instructions for the next phase of the attack on Hengyu. Mr. Fu was concise, saying only, "You go ahead and do what you need to do. I'll cooperate with you." Early the next morning, as soon as Qin Yuchu arrived at the company, she received the share transfer agreement personally delivered by lawyer Zhang, proof of 20% ownership in Hengyu Group, and a dedicated financial account number. With everything ready, Qin Yuchu closed the door to the executive assistant's office, turned on the computer on her desk, and set up the 3 specially requested laptops in suitable positions. She made herself a cup of instant coffee, stared at the flickering blue light of the monitor, and a captivating, fierce smile spread across her lips. First in all subjects doesn't mean I surpassed everyone. It means there's no one ahead of me. Hengyu Group's conference room was packed, and the large screen was live-streaming the stock market index. Since the market opened today, everyone had been staring intently at this display. There was no special reason, other than the fact that the chairman's only son had been put away. A long list of charges had been compiled, and it looked like he wouldn't be getting out anytime soon. But today, almost all the shareholders had gathered, not because they were worried that this Crown Prince's scandal would affect the company's stock price, but because the Crown Prince's lawyer had brought back a piece of news overnight. The person the Crown Prince had offended was the one who had secretly gobbled up 20% of Hengyu's shares. And this time, the Crown Prince and the other party had formed a deadly feud. The other party had threatened mutual destruction. With 20% of the shares, plus the other party's previous maneuvers, this was entirely possible. Wang Taijun had no time to deal with his worthless, prodigal son. He had convened an emergency shareholders meeting overnight. The $10 billion Hengyu wouldn't fall so easily. Could it be that the other party is just trying to scare young Master Wang? After all, they've already fired 2 shots. A shareholder frowned. All morning, the stock price hadn't shown any abnormalities. We're all businessmen. Surely they wouldn't be so impulsive? Another shareholder spoke up. After pulling an all-nighter and a morning of anxiety, his resentment towards the Wang father and son was palpable. Let's hope so. Old Wang wearily pinched the bridge of his nose and took a large gulp of strong tea. In fact, last night, he had used many connections to inquire about this Fu Hang. To his dismay, he still couldn't find any information. This made him even more apprehensive. He had the name, yet he still couldn't find anything out? That could only mean this person had a profound background. He didn't really believe that the other party would go to such lengths for a personal grudge, aiming for mutual destruction. He was more inclined to believe it was all a conspiracy, that someone had set up his son, that someone had their eyes on Hengyu. But to make a move on Hengyu, that was easier said than done. Nevertheless, the cautious Wang Taijun, likely a typo, should be Wang Taijun, as Wang Haitao is the son, still passed this information up through special channels. The turmoil of a $10 billion group in the stock market was no small matter. If the other party truly acted recklessly and without regard, he couldn't stop them, but someone else naturally would. The market's closed. Let's take a break first. Wang Taijun rose wearily and headed towards his private lounge. He still wasn't at ease. He needed to make a few calls himself. Meanwhile, in an analysis room filled with various screens, another group of people was seated. The composition of this group was quite complex. Capable middle-aged men, energetic young people, many elderly individuals, and even quite a few stern-looking men in uniform. No movement? Could it be false news? An old man took off his glasses and looked suspiciously at the old man beside him. If Qin Yuchu were here, she would have recognized the person being questioned as none other than the newly appointed project consultant for Yuan Trade, the dean of Hansung University's School of Finance, the sole formation stage old ancestor with a long string of titles. Professor Lee? Better safe than sorry. That kid is incredibly unorthodox. I've seen his case for acquiring Yuanhua and his initial methods for acquiring Hengyu. Breathtaking. Professor Li looked grave, but a deep appreciation flowed from his profound eyes. Aren't you exaggerating? Send me the case files, let me see. No rush, no rush. I asked you to look before, and you weren't interested. This is much more interesting than that. Professor Li pointed to the large screen in front of him. Speaking of which, if he really makes a move, how should we manage our involvement? Another middle-aged man leaned in. Don't ask me. I'm here to learn. Go ask them. Professor Li pointed to the uniformed men behind him. There's a change, an analyst suddenly shouted. The expressions of everyone in the conference room tensed, and they hurriedly focused on the various displays. That's it. An hour later, the old man who had spoken first frowned. The timing of the pull and throw was precise, indicating a top-tier trader. But Hengyu's side clearly also had top-tier traders defending. An hour of tug-of-war hadn't produced any significant effect. This should be Little Qin's handiwork. Professor Li's eyes sharpened. He turned to a set of corresponding analysis charts and gave his conclusion. It was less Little Qin's handiwork and more his own style. A clear lineage. Professor Li nodded slightly. Little Qin indeed had talent. On her own, she could fight Hengyu to such a standstill. Given time, she would be a pillar of strength. You mean that kid didn't make a move? The speaker sounded a bit disappointed. Several big shots had rushed here overnight just to watch old Li's students show off. Abnormal data in Group 9-7. Abnormal data in Group 17-2D. Abnormal data in Group 3-12U. 3 consecutive reports startled everyone in the conference room. Quick, switch to it. Excitement flashed across Professor Li's face as he forcefully pushed his glasses up. Group 8-11C. Group 6-32B. Then, reports from various observation analysts continuously echoed in the conference room. Until the market closed for the day, Professor Li couldn't make any sense of the chaotic information. All analysis groups consolidate information immediately. Groups 1 and 2, horizontal comparison. Groups 3 and 4, vertical comparison. Send the analysis results to Group 5 for verification, then forward them here. Professor Li roared, frantically working on the computer in front of him. Are you sure this was done by one person? He's operating on multiple lines simultaneously? That's not what I'm concerned about. It's Protocol 29. How could it have such a huge loophole? Protocol 4.13 also has vulnerabilities. This is a goddamn slap in the face. A bald, middle-aged man wiped sweat from his forehead, his face pale, with lingering fear. I get it now. Why they called all of us here, replied the old man, initially sitting next to Professor Li. Simply these 2 loopholes were worth their trip. If these vulnerabilities were discovered by overseas venture capital firms, the consequences would be unimaginable. You think Hengyu's side has discovered them? Old Li suddenly asked a strange question. Discover jack shit. I couldn't even see it without this data support. The bald, middle-aged man tossed away his soaked tissue and grabbed a few more. Never mind them for now. Hurry up and get the conclusions. In Hengyu Group's conference room, the atmosphere remained tense. Statistical results immediately. Wang Tiejuan's expression was cold. The other party had finally made their move. As soon as the market opened in the afternoon, they had directly smashed the market. But while his side was pulling the price up, they had also bought in at critical points. Their methods were extremely sophisticated, and they didn't care about the cost. The news from his son was indeed correct. The other party was playing for keeps. If not for his son's warning, being caught off guard by the other party would have had unimaginable consequences. The losses aren't significant. We didn't miss our selling points, and the stock price fluctuation wasn't large, so it didn't attract the attention of retail investors. The analyst quickly reported the results. But this is just the beginning. If the other party engages us in a protracted war, this kind of tactic is impossible to defend against. A shareholder rubbed his face hard. This kind of defense consumed a lot of cash flow. Hengyu was worth 10 billion, true, but they couldn't put all their cash flow here to fight a war of attrition with the other party. Judging by today's situation, who knew how much reserve capital the other party had? It's fine. Not many can sustain this kind of tactic for long. Once the other party can't hold on anymore, I'll make sure not even their bones are left. Wang Tiejuan's face was fierce, a ruthless glint in his eyes. At this time, morale could not be shaken. Everyone worked hard today. Since we know the other party's strength, there's no need for everyone to keep staring tomorrow. Go back and rest well. Wang Taijun rose calmly and walked to his private lounge. Closing the door, Wang Taijun picked up the phone again. However, he was disappointed once more. Those few calls still went unanswered. This was very abnormal. Fu Hang went to the supermarket and bought 2 large bags full of groceries. Then, he managed to prepare 8 dishes, 2 soups, and a nourishing dessert before Yuchu got off work. No other reason, just guilt, genuine guilt this time. He had seen Yuchu when delivering breakfast this morning. When she saw Shen Qingluan adjusting his helmet for him, she had smiled at him. He didn't know if the 20 billion yuan share certificate lawyer Zhang delivered could suppress the Empress's murderous aura, but Fu Hang felt that the lifetime skills of a Grandmaster-level chef should make the Empress a little gentler when she brought the knife down. Yuchu arrived home right on time. She pushed open the door, changed her shoes, and her face lit up with surprise at the sight of the table laden with food. Then she hugged Fu Hang and was clingy and affectionate for a long, long time. Then she changed into pajamas, tied up her hair, and sat down quietly at the dining table. "Were you home all afternoon?" Qin Yuchu glanced across the dining table. She had also spent a lot of time looking at recipes. Several dishes here couldn't have been made in a short time. "Not really, just went to the supermarket." Fu Hang's eyes darted away. He quickly picked up the soup ladle and served Yuchu some appetizer soup. Qin Yuchu's gaze then shifted to the living room, where she saw a black laptop on the sofa. Yuchu raised an eyebrow, a hint of dejection in her eyes. "Is this the gap between us? And I call myself a top student, a genius." This man, using just one computer while multitasking on several fronts, still found time to go to the supermarket and cook a whole table of food. Late in the afternoon, near market close, she had sensed something unusual. Someone was using very subtle methods to coordinate with her, making only a few moves. If she hadn't been highly sensitive, worried that Hung Yu had backup plans, and constantly monitoring everything, she wouldn't have noticed. Those few moments of assistance were incredibly precise. She had originally planned to take a loss today, but in the end, the loss didn't reach her expectations. "Have some soup. I added a little sea cucumber. It's good for your complexion." Fu Hang placed the soup bowl in front of her. "Mm." Qin Yuchu nodded vigorously. "Is he trying not to crush my confidence in my strongest field? Is that why he's being so subtle?" Yuchu's heart felt sweet. Initially, she had truly misunderstood. Yesterday, when Fu Hang said he would assist her, she thought it was financial assistance. She had spent the whole night planning how to save money and maximize profits. But now it seemed Fu Hang's assistance was far more than that. Yes, how could a man of such means not understand finance? He had entrusted Yuanbo to her probably because he wanted her to do what she loved, right? Qin Yuchu's eyes flickered, her smooth little feet kicking off her slippers, eager to move. But the next moment, her eyes lit up, and she looked at the soup in her hand in disbelief, then looked up at Fu Hang. "Is it good?" Fu Hang asked expectantly. Qin Yuchu nodded vigorously. Because she nodded too hard, her long nightgown, not covered by an apron, shifted restlessly. "Try the other dishes." Fu Hang quickly served her food. "I thought you only made delicious grilled fish." Qin Yuchu drank the soup in her bowl in one go, her appetite whetted. Her smooth feet slipped back into her slippers. "How could that be? It's just that the equipment is a bit lacking. I'll prepare some more later. In the future, I guarantee I'll take you through a Manchu Han imperial feast." "Really? Have I ever lied to you?" Fu Hang asked very seriously. "Then I want steamed lamb, steamed bear paw, steamed deer tail, roasted duck, roasted spring chicken, roasted gosling, roasted suckling pig, roasted duck, soy sauce chicken, cured meat, preserved eggs, jelly pork, air-dried meat, sausages, assorted cold cuts." Qin Yuchu puffed her cheeks and mumbled a long list. Fu Hang's mouth formed an O again. "You even know this?" The meal was very satisfying. Qin Yuchu's inhuman constitution once again ran rampant, devouring everything like a storm. Fu Hang, too, disregarded his image and ate voraciously. Full and content, the two snuggled quietly on the sofa. As the saying goes, a full belly leads to lustful thoughts, but at this moment, only warmth enveloped the room. Before 9 o'clock, Qin Yuchu fell into a deep sleep. Fu Hang carried her into the bedroom and gently covered her with a blanket. This woman always knew what he needed. When he didn't particularly need her, she thoughtfully went to bed early. He actually had a selfish motive for today's meal. The 8 dishes and 2 soups seemed ordinary, but they were all palace recipes. Commonly known as medicinal cuisine, they nourished yin, tonified qi, and strengthened essence and body. He found it hard to imagine how long he, a grandmaster, could last without the Qingquan Ao Miao Ju, mysteries of heaven and earth art, and thank you for your patronage. System, you are my dearest friend in this life. I will treat you like my own son in the future. If I ever become emperor, you will be the crown prince. Fu Hang began to carefully clean the kitchen. What he didn't know was that Yu Chu was genuinely exhausted today. Her brain had been overloaded all day. Keep in mind, she had been single-handedly facing off against a roomful of Hung Yu Group's top traders. The stock market is like a battlefield. One careless mistake can truly lead to irreversible ruin. She couldn't let Fu Hang's money go to waste. She knew why Fu Hang wanted to crush Hung Yu. Wang Haitao had almost harmed Shen Qingluan, but Fu Hang had only beaten him up. Wang Haitao wanted to harm her, and Fu Hang started acting unreasonably and recklessly. What could Yu Chu do at this time? Advise him not to be impulsive? Then she wouldn't be Yu Chu. Yu Chu would cry with you, laugh with you, go crazy with you, and cause trouble with you. In another building under the night sky, Professor Lee held his laptop, followed by a group of hurrying old men. These old men wore varied expressions, some excited, some worried, some impatient, some grave. But their purpose at this moment was the same: to go to the compound for a meeting. The analysis results were out. The results were absurd. That kid had been teaching them a lesson all day. His moves today had a negligible impact on the acquisition and suppression of Hung Yu. Not even as good as that girl's. However, the few key points he touched upon had sounded alarm bells for these financial experts, especially those loopholes. So, today, he had merely given a signal. I'm about to make my move, hold on tight. Professor Lee even mentally added a line. I'll only do this once, okay? Watch carefully. Professor Lee was one of the few present who knew about Fu Hang's overseas operations. When the higher-ups approached him and asked him to use Qin Youchu's identity to get close to Yuanbua for observation, it had been subtly hinted at. Now, Professor Lee finally understood. Qin Youchu was a pillar of strength, but this kid was definitely a national strategic asset. That night, in this compound, not shown on any satellite maps, a fierce discussion unfolded. The arguments were incessant, far from the solemnity and dignity of a meeting of top leaders. But the focus of the debate was very heavy. To block or not to block? Almost no one doubted that if Fu Hang made a move, Hung Yu could retreat unscathed. The reason for the dispute wasn't really because of Hung Yu, but solely because of Fu Hang. Letting him continue was everyone's hope. On this point, everyone was actually in agreement. Everyone wanted to see what kind of tricks he could play after formally entering the field. But what worried these bigwigs was that once a stock market financial war began, it couldn't just be stopped on command. Moreover, if the commotion got slightly larger, retail investors would definitely follow suit like crazy, and foreign venture capital would also flock in. At that time, if things went wrong, it would be another financial storm. At the peak of the heated debate, the middle-aged man chairing the meeting received a phone call. He then took the microphone, summarized the meeting, and laid out the relevant plans. Cautious observation. Within controllable limits, analyze his operational methods, as much as possible, identify and rectify shortcomings. Simultaneously, relevant departments are to closely monitor foreign venture capital activities and activate reserve funds. If any abnormalities arise, intervene promptly to prevent the situation from deteriorating. Concerned departments should promptly monitor public sentiment and formulate contingency plans in advance. If public livelihood is affected, provide timely reassurance and adjust strategies. If necessary, the project can be terminated. Within a small scope, allow some experts to select credible personnel to participate in observation and learning, but they must sign non-disclosure agreements. After confirming the existence of vulnerabilities in relevant financial protocols, an expert group will provide timely feedback, make corresponding supplementary adjustments, report to the relevant departments promptly, and implement corrections. For this financial activity, the expert group must completely record the entire process. And this meeting defined the project, a financial war drill. The project title, Great Wall Defense. The detailed project proposal was very, very long and covered a wide range. But to summarize, it was just 2 sentences. Let him do it, you all learn. And Hung Yu was the tuition fee. Didn't they say this kid has no background? Walking out of the conference room, an old man stopped Professor Lee. The project deployment just now, to put it bluntly, means the higher-ups are going crazy with him, right? I have a hunch that through this drill, our financial system might advance by 2 levels. Professor Lee rubbed his tired eyes, looked up at the brilliant starry sky, his tone exceptionally certain. He was a pure scholar. You could say he lacked a big-picture view, but in terms of finance, in his youth, he was comparable to the current academic prodigy, little Qin. Early the next morning, Qin Youchu once again closed her office door. First, she did a set of neck exercises, then brewed herself a pot of pu'er tea. Yesterday's food was too greasy. Today, she needed to cleanse her system. Just now in the parking lot, She had run into Shen Qingluan. When Shen Qingluan saw her getting out of the GT900, her expression was quite amusing. She really didn't know what game Fu Hang was playing. Shen Qingluan wasn't inherently bad, just a bit too materialistic. In a way, wasn't she the same? Didn't she initially get entangled with the boss because of money? But whatever, the boss likes to play, so I'll play along with him. I'm very smart. When it's time to play my part, I'll do my utmost. Just like now. Qin Yuchu flicked her slender hand, unfastened the bracelet on her wrist, carefully stored it in a small box, and placed it below the monitor. This bracelet was a later gift from the boss. The bracelet she had worn for a long time, which had been a hand-me-down, along with that brooch, had been thrown away by the boss. His exact words were, "They're not worthy of being on you." Sigh, what a pity, it cost several thousand yuan. Today, there were 2 more computers. Qin Yuchu removed the rimless glasses from her face and replaced them with her original thick-rimmed, heavy-lensed ones. Her bangs today weren't even combed up. Instead, they vaguely obscured her eyes. In an instant, she seemed to have returned to those days of conquering exams. Market opening countdown. A sweet smile appeared on Qin Yuchu's lips. Slaughter, hunting time. Hangyu Group headquarters. Significantly fewer shareholders were present in the conference room today. Apart from Wang Taijun, many of the other major shareholders weren't solely invested in this company. After roughly assessing the situation yesterday, they couldn't possibly stay cooped up here. As for whether they had other intentions, that was beyond what outsiders could fathom. Wang Taijun had no spare energy to pay attention to them, merely staring coldly at the large screen. The other party has made a move. Almost the second the market opened, the analyst saw a large influx of funds into Hangyu. Keep a close watch on him. Wang Tiejuan's eyes narrowed, a murderous glint flashing within. Compared to yesterday's probing, Assistant Qin, now brimming with confidence, was like a raging inferno today. Her operations were bold and sweeping, launching a swift, aggressive advance right from the start. Intricate and complex data flickered constantly, and shouts of alarm erupted from time to time within the conference room. Wang Tiejuan's face was grim, but his breathing remained exceptionally steady. "Convert Haitao's shares. We need cash." Wang Taijun pulled his assistant aside and whispered a few instructions. The assistant paused for a moment, then nodded silently. By the time the morning session recessed, Wang Taijun once again pulled his assistant into his private lounge. Still no reply from the higher-ups? The same excuse as before. Normal financial transactions. They won't interfere. Damn it, what kind of backing do they have? Wang Taijun slammed his palm furiously on the desk. Today, the other party's actions were clearly out of line, yet the higher-ups remained evasive. "All right, you can leave first." Wang Taijun waved his hand wearily. After the assistant left the lounge, he grimly picked up the phone and calmly dialed a number. The buttons he pressed indicated it was an overseas call. In Professor Li's conference room, the atmosphere was electric. Little Qin is very aggressive, isn't she? So fierce, not like old Li style at all. A plump middle-aged woman smiled like a blooming firework, holding a data analysis sheet and marveling. The student surpasses the master. Professor Li, on the side, felt a surge of pride. He had been monitoring Qin Yuchu's movements all morning, not even bothering to look at that kid's operations. He wouldn't look. He'd wait for the analysis team to collate the data. On the big screen, he couldn't understand it. But Qin Yuchu was truly a genius. He had been mentally simulating where he would operate at which points. But after observing all morning, he was astounded to find that Qin Yuchu's grasp of timing was exactly in line with his own mental simulations, and compared to him, she was more ruthless, more vicious. Professor Li even reverse simulated, playing defense, how to dismantle little Qin's moves. "How about a set? Screen 9, A5, C1, an analyst suddenly shouted. Since the market had already recessed, people in the conference room instantly swarmed over. Compared to yesterday, there were significantly more people today. There were even many who looked like students, holding notebooks, standing far behind the yellow line. They looked pitiful, like mortals witnessing an old ancestor undergoing a tribulation. All morning, it was awe-inspiringly incomprehensible. Not only could they not understand, but no one explained it to them. They weren't even worthy of a tablet. All their electronic devices had been confiscated, and they could only miserably take notes in their notebooks. Actually, if it had been 2 months ago, Qin Yuchu would probably have been here too. It can be done like this? The middle-aged woman who had been smiling like a flower looked dazed. Breathtaking. We never even dared to think from this angle before. Are you sure this kid is from the Chinese language and literature department? Which university? The head of their admissions and employment office should be sent to the countryside. The old man beside Professor Lee couldn't help but frown. He filled in his own major preference. It has nothing to do with them. Besides, a prodigy like this, even if he were given to you, could you teach him? Professor Lee pursed his lips. He could teach me. The old man wasn't modest at all, retorting with wide-eyed righteousness. Is it just this segment? Professor Lee asked loudly. The others are still being tallied. His methods today are much more covert than yesterday's. Is he afraid we wouldn't react in time? The old man beside Professor Lee asked hesitantly. Professor Lee frowned, lost in thought. Any movement from overseas venture capital? Not for now. Keep a close watch. Fu Hang was completely oblivious to the bloody turmoil in the stock market, nor did he understand any of it. He had actually secretly turned on his computer yesterday to earnestly follow it, but it was all for naught. The red, blue, and green lines made his head spin. After 17 seconds, he switched software and played a game. 19-0-14, with a pentakill and 4 triple kills. Humph. You think a grandmaster isn't a grandmaster just because there's a computer screen between us? The game speed on my end is 0. 75x. Fu Hang sat in his exclusive spot at the milk tea shop, brewing a pot of Da Hong Pao. This was the boss's prerogative and privilege. Putting on his headphones, he was about to go save ignorant internet-addicted youths and help them establish correct values. Simply put, help college students and unemployed youths who were gaming early in the morning to quit their internet addiction. Just as he was in the heat of a satisfying slaughter, the river lane perilous, Fu Hang had just completed a 1v4 encirclement, successfully securing 3 kills, when he suddenly felt the surrounding atmosphere turn cold. Fu Hang became alert. Could it be that he had killed too ruthlessly, and the opponents had tracked him down through the internet cable? He tentatively raised his head and scanned the milk tea shop, only to be stunned by the figure entering the doorway. Kid, what on earth have you been through? A disheveled, grimy, and unshaven man with a guitar slung over his back passed by him like a walking corpse. He exuded an aura of decline, and his lifeless eyes, like stagnant water, showed no sign of vitality. Walking past him, it was as if a lost soul had drifted by. Fu Hang's mouth fell open. He ignored the impending pentakill and took off his headphones. How could a sunny, youthful young man turn into a world-weary middle-aged man in just a few days? When you first entered this inn, you came with special effects. No, wait, there's special effect today, too. The little assistant following Lei Lu had sharp eyes. Spotting Fu Hang, her eyes lit up. She slowed her pace and looked at Fu Hang with a fawning expression. Actually, it wasn't that her eyes were particularly sharp. She almost always glanced at this corner whenever she came. Fu Hang waved at her. The little assistant, blushing like a peach blossom, scurried over. What's wrong with him? Fu Hang asked, astonished, as the corpse-like figure, neither human nor ghost, had already drifted upstairs. Heartbroken, I guess. The little assistant raised an eyebrow. You're asking me what's wrong with him? You personally shattered his soul, and now you can put on such an innocent expression? Is this what capitalists are like? It can't be that bad, can it? Isn't he a simp? Fu Hang began to feel a twinge of pity. This simp isn't holding up well, huh? Is his Dao heart really that fragile? The little assistant forced a solemn expression, but the terror in her heart was indescribable. He really is a black-hearted capitalist. Do you even hear what you're saying? Him like this? Is it okay? Fu Hang's gaze drifted upwards. Lei Lu had already mechanically sat down in his spot, listlessly hugging his guitar, waiting for the assistant's cue to start streaming. It's fine. After his transformation, the effect has been great. He's gained a scary number of fans these past few days, the little assistant hurriedly explained, thinking the black-hearted capitalist was worried about the live stream's promotional effect. You call this a transformation? Fu Hang was speechless. Indeed, these big companies have no humanity. The kid is already like this, and they're still parading him out to work? Yes, the transformation was very successful. We have to thank President Fu for his guidance and help. The little assistant offered a rather clumsy bit of flattery. What's it got to do with me? Fu Hang became anxious. If something happens to this kid, don't blame me. Yes. It's Lei Li's own high aptitude. He repositioned his persona and carved out a whole new niche. People actually watch him stream like this? Fu Hang asked curiously, hearing the little assistant speak so seriously. The effect is excellent. Originally, the live stream viewers were mostly mom fans, but mom fans don't actually help our brand much. But after his transformation, this melancholic temperament, those profound eyes, immediately attracted a large number of younger sister fans. The spending power of these younger sister fans is terrifying. The little assistant suddenly perked up. Actually, she personally liked this version of Lei Lu too, world-weary, coolly detached, as if he had seen through everything in the world. Those dazed eyes were filled with the wisdom of one who had renounced worldly vanities. She had a chance for a promotion, but she refused it. She wanted to stay here to accompany this heartbroken man through his lowest point. You can go now. Fu Hang's lips twitched. He felt a headache coming on. It's not like I did anything last night, did I? The little assistant went upstairs, and the live stream began. A low, world-weary, deep and raspy voice drifted down from upstairs. Fu Hang's eyebrow twitched. His damn vocal tone has changed too? Did you awaken some kind of talent? How about I give this kid another song? Poor thing. Of the 4 songs rewarded by the entertainment industry mission chain, he had only sung Heart Like a Knife's Cut so far. Of the remaining 3, one seemed quite suitable for the current Lei Lu 2.0. Lowering his head, Fu Hang saw that the game had ended. The gray words defeat occupied the entire screen. So, I was playing 1v9 just now. The overall score was 37-8, and you guys still managed to lose? Fu Hang glanced at his own stats, 27-0-9. Damn it, I even got reported. Completely losing the mood to play games, Fu Hang closed his computer. Just then his phone rang. Without much thought, Fu Hang saw it was an unknown number and answered directly. Hello, may I ask if this is Teacher Qing He? Fu Hang held the phone, stunned for a long time. Qing He is Qing He. Teacher is teacher. Don't string those 4 words together. What the hell is Teacher Qing He? So damn unlucky. Fu Hang was furious. He remembered that when the damn system registered the copyright for his songs in the parallel world, the name used was Qing He. Damn it, what kind of decent person is named Qing He? And teacher? Don't you dare associate me with that flop author. To be fair, he actually quite liked that writer at first. Witty, logical, meticulous writing, full of details, especially the character development, a world apart from those shallow, padded characters. Look at that book title. You really think I'm a simp? He felt so much empathy reading it. But you were writing a sweet, fluffy novel perfectly fine. Why did you have to go and add nonsense like giving away female characters, soldier kings, gangsters, and business wars? Who the hell reads that stuff? Don't you know that your readers are thoughtful, profound, morally upright, and ambitious book friends? He was even planning to find a chance to tip him a few million, or even tens of millions. Now, serve you right for flopping. The person on the other end of the phone was stunned by Fu Hang's outburst. Isn't calling you teacher a sign of respect? Isn't that how everyone in the industry does it? Well, hello, Mr. Qing. My surname is Fu. Hello, Mr. Fu. Get to the point. Fu Hang was very irritable. He rarely read a book so seriously, and then it just ended. It's like this. I'm Fong Tiandai, an agent from Huana Entertainment. Our company's artist, Zhu Yun, would like to request a song from you. Fong Tiandai quickly stated her purpose. This Qing, he was incredibly hard to find. She had used almost all her connections just to get his phone number. With her veteran entertainment agent's insight, the moment she heard Heart Like a Knife's Cut, she knew this was a treasure, a reclusive master who would one day sweep the Chinese music scene. One-hit song might be a stroke of luck, but hit after hit, especially 4 in such a short period, was definitely not simple. Therefore, she had gone to great lengths to secure this yet-to-be-revealed gold medal lyricist and composer. Request a song? Huana? Zhu Yun? Fu Hang was stunned. He knew of Huana. It was considered an entertainment giant in Great China. But asking him for a song? It's like this, Mr. Fu. We've been trying to contact your company, but they refused us, saying your songs are only for your own company's artists. But please believe me, Mr. Fu. Zhu Yun is a very talented newcomer. If she could collaborate with you. Wait a minute. Fu Hang interrupted. Company? My company? Only for my own company's artists? Since when do I have an entertainment company? System, do you know about this? Fu Hang immediately thought of the system, but he hadn't done anything outrageous recently, right? Except for wanting to tip that flop author, but he hadn't done it yet. The company you just mentioned is. The system didn't respond. Fu Hang could only patiently ask the other party. Suddenly having an extra company was no joke. He'd suffered in this regard before. Ganlu Milk Tea's Performing Arts Department, of course. Fu Hang's mouth twitched. Are you even listening to yourself? Ganlu Milk Tea's Performing Arts Department? What kind of milk tea shop has a performing arts department? Is this even a legitimate milk tea shop? Thanks. Not interested. Fu Hang hung up directly. Looking up, Fu Hang snapped his fingers in midair. Boss! Xia Xiaofeng appeared out of nowhere. Your company has a performing arts department? Fu Hang looked at him in surprise. President Li had established. Because publicity involves many entertainment industry projects, President Li thought it best to keep the benefits in-house. So she set up a separate department. Xia Xiaofeng answered seriously. You're not going to tell me that guy upstairs is from the performing arts department, are you? Yes, he's the first artist signed by the company. Lifetime contract. Fu Hang licked his lips. Are you guys even human? Besides him, are there others? Xiao Qi signed too, and the Xia Xiaofeng pondered for a moment, then pointed to the black-clothed men outside the door. Fu Hang's toes curled. He understood about Xiao Qi. After all, she was the original singer of Actor. But the bald guys? Weren't they security guards? You're not planning to train them as male models, are you? He was determined not to do anything illegal. They were signed as a boy band. 3-year contract. Xia Xiaofeng understood Fu Hang's expression and explained softly, looking down. It's not called 101, is it? 010. Ahem. Fu Hang choked. You really are a rich young lady, aren't you? Playing such elaborate games? Is this rebate even going to happen? A man who doesn't plan for the future will find trouble at his doorstep. Luckily, I had the foresight to prepare a 5 billion surprise for Shen Qingluan. Otherwise, waiting for your milk tea shop's valuation in 3 years. I worked my ass off raising it for 3 years, and then you tell me it lost money. Will you deduct money from me at settlement? Right. Can't hang myself on one tree. Can't put all eggs in one basket. Entertainment company? Seems like a plan. Isn't this a great place to burn money? Besides, isn't the entertainment industry a hub for green tea bitches? If I encounter a system-approved client, wouldn't a few dramas be enough to sink billions? Fu Hang frowned, waved his hand casually, and Xia Xiaofeng dispersed like the wind. Wei Yong. Fu Hang took out his phone, his voice unusually gentle. Damn, it feels like I haven't seen Li Wei Yong in a long time. This woman's favorability has been stuck at 94. 44% bugged out? Why are you calling me now? Li Wei Yong's voice sounded exceptionally surprised, but her surroundings seemed very noisy, like a construction site. Miss you, want to see you. Fu Hang licked his lips, feeling like he'd been slacking lately. Spring nights are short. The sun rises high. From then on, the king no longer held early court. Truly a femme fatale who brings ruin to the country and its people. Not going to work will lead to the downfall of a nation. Huh, now, I'm in Sha City. Should I head back now? Li Wei Yong asked eagerly, and he could even hear hurried footsteps. No rush, no rush. Why did you go to Sha City? Opening branch doors, of course. The 2 branches here are almost done with renovations, so I came to take a look. By the way, let's use Heart Like a Knife's Cut as the theme song for one of them. Should we still have Lei Lu sing it? His current image fits it well. No problem, you call the shots. Wait, Sha City branches. Fu Hang was stunned again. Weren't we supposed to be losing money? How is it expanding so fast? Yes, we're opening 2 this time. You need to hurry up and give me the theme song for the other one. The basic renovation is almost finished, and we need to finalize the style soon. I was just about to talk to you about this. Li Wei Yong's footsteps stopped, as if she had walked to an empty corner. Actually, she should have contacted Fu Hang sooner. But these past few days, whenever she had a free moment, she would think of Fu Hang. And when she thought of Fu Hang, her mind would be filled with the image of him standing quietly outside the car, silent. She was scared. She didn't dare to actively seek Fu Hang out again. The song isn't urgent. I heard you also set up a performing arts department. Yes. Li Wei Yong's voice suddenly tensed. Because this department wasn't in the project proposal. It was something she had done on a whim, taking matters into her own hands. Her purpose was solely to prevent Fu Hang from wasting money, to prevent Fu Hang's talents from benefiting others. This idea is great. It's exactly what I was thinking. Fu Hang heard the apprehension in her voice and quickly offered emotional support. Huh, really? Yes, but you're still too cautious. You can take bigger steps, have a bigger vision. Fu Hang guided her patiently. Recruit more artists? Of course, we need to recruit people, but first, spin off the performing arts department. Let's start our own entertainment company. A milk tea shop. What's it doing with the performing arts department? I actually thought about it. Li Wei Yong had indeed had this idea, but she didn't have the money. The performing arts department was her backup plan. Then do it. Go set up the company immediately. But I don't have any money left. Li Wei Yong was very embarrassed. She had invested all her savings into the milk tea company. Wei Yong. Fu Hang's tone suddenly softened, but this gentleness carried a hint of reproach. Li Wei Yong immediately bit her lip. This soft whisper seemed to murmur in her ear. She could even feel his warm breath and his unique scent. I know you're a naive and romantic woman. Tying you down with a milk tea project actually pains me. You should be running under the sun, dazzling under the spotlight, soaring among the colorful clouds. Fu Hang, Li Weiyang's voice suddenly choked with emotion. Go ahead and do what you want to do. I'll take care of the rest. But is 100 million enough? Let's get the framework set up first. We'll work on the rest together. Silence on Li Weiyang's end. He remembered. He always remembered. She loved music, loved art, loved watching dramas. In her earlier years, she had even chased stars. The entertainment industry had always held a special attraction for her. Fu Hang, thank you. But the milk tea shop project is at a critical stage right now. This is also my dream, and I won't and can't give it up. I can't get distracted. After being moved for a long time, Li Weiyang regained her composure. The milk tea shop was not just her dream. She knew it was Fu Hang's blueprint, Fu Hang's obsession. She had to help Fu Hang complete this dream, and then personally sever Fu Hang's obsession. For him, for herself, and for the her standing outside the car. You don't need to worry about that. The preliminary work can be delegated to others. Same as before, just do what you love. Fu Hang, Li Weiyang's voice began to tremble, and she was sobbing on the phone. Take care of yourself over there. I'll always be here. Fu Hang smiled gently and hung up. Li Weiyang rebate plus 100, 000,000. Hang in there, Miss Li. There will be many more transactions going through you in the future. Fu Hang raised his hand and snapped his fingers again. Xia Xiaofeng flashed into existence. Seriously, does your flash have no cooldown? I'm planning to start an entertainment company. You'll be the CEO. Fu Hang looked at Xia Xiaofeng calmly. Xia Xiaofeng's usually imperturbable face finally showed surprise. This is CEO already? Is the next step marrying a beautiful, rich woman? But I've only been on one movie date with Lu Ru. Boss, I'm just a waiter. Surprise was followed by panic. Xia Xiaofeng remained calm. I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm informing you. The entertainment company will be called Weiyang Entertainment. She's still your boss. The core team will be the current performing arts department. Find lawyer Zhang. He'll handle the relevant procedures. Get the framework set up as soon as possible. Weiyang Entertainment's first project will be to fully cooperate with Ganlu Milk Tea's publicity. Fu Hang sat up straight, his tone calm but unyielding. But, boss, I really don't know anything about the entertainment industry. Xia Xiaofeng's greatest strength was knowing himself, knowing who he was. Don't know. Fu Hang frowned. He didn't know either. The female stars he chased were all foreign. And honestly, their recognizability wasn't very high once they put clothes on. Hold on. Fu Hang picked up the phone again. What was your name again? Fu Hang asked. Huan Entertainment, Feng Tiandai. The other party replied, surprised. Drop the Huana. Come to my company. Fu Hang's tone was still calm. Mr. Fu. President Fu, please don't joke. What's your current salary? I'll give you triple. President Fu. Feng Tiandai's voice was tinged with helplessness. 4 times. President Fu, my salary isn't low. 5 times. When do I start? Come to Ganlu Milk Tea at Century Plaza in Hanqing now. Meet the company's administrative head. You two can discuss the specifics. I'm in Hanqing right now. I'll be there immediately. Fu Hang hung up and raised an eyebrow at Xia Xiaofeng. We have someone who knows the ropes now. Turn off the live stream. Fu Hang stood up coolly and walked up the stairs step by step. This kind of domineering CEO aura didn't appear often in a SIMP. He wanted to savor it a bit longer. Boss. The listless, wandering soul looked up and saw Fu Hang looking down at him, his pale lips trembling slightly. Pathetic. Fu Hang gave him a cold glance and took the guitar from his hands. Take this down. This song is the other theme song for the Sha City branch. Let him sing it. Also, from now on, you're not an assistant anymore. You're his manager. Huh. The little assistant looked astonished. Ganlu Milk Tea, Performing Arts Department Manager? Are you guys finally going in this direction? Lately. Is he really going down that path? No, I'm a manager. I can at least pick some good clients for him. Not so old. The little assistant looked wistfully at the entrance of the milk tea shop, where a row of burly, fierce-looking yet posturing men in black stood. I drink alone. I walk alone. I face this cruel world alone. I put my hands in my pockets, clench my fists, and swing at the heartless night sky. Fu Hang ignored the little assistant's emotional escalation and started his showboating with the guitar. But for a domineering CEO to sing this song, the emotional buildup wasn't quite there, and the temperament didn't match at all. In short, this showboating was very dull. Fu Hang slunk away. Is this your company's artist? Feng Tiandai, who had just arrived, looked in astonishment at Fu Hang striding away, too surprised to speak. She had seen Fu Hang before, in Lei Li's livestream. She had once frantically searched for Fu Hang's contact information, but failed. He seemed to be a guest amateur. But she hadn't expected to see him here again. Oh my God, this singing skill, this expressiveness, these looks, this aura. Give him to me, and in less than 3 years, I can groom a heavenly king, the kind that reigns supreme. If Mr. Fu could maintain his output of hit songs, these 3 years could even be shortened to 1. That's the boss, Xia Xiaofeng said calmly. The boss. Fang Tiandai was astonished. Wait, the boss you're talking about? Yes, he wrote the songs too. Fang Tiandai was completely shocked. Originally, she had simply been swayed by the money. But now, she felt there was great potential here. Huana? Hith. Tremble, mortals of the entertainment industry. I, Fang Tiandai, have arrived clinging to the thighs of gods. At dinner, Fu Hang still prepared a sumptuous table. Yuchu came back a bit late today, a full 9 minutes late. Was it traffic? Leaning against the kitchen door, Fu Hang watched the figure changing shoes. Yuchu turned around, gave a sweet smile, but her gaze inevitably drifted to the laptop bag on the sofa. Today's intensity was much greater than yesterday's. Hung Yu's defense was almost impenetrable, and their layout was more complete. If Fu Hang hadn't secretly taken potshots from the side, she might not have achieved anything today. What are we eating today? Yuchu obediently snuggled up, wrapping her arms around Fu Hang's neck. Don't. There's cooking smoke. Fu Hang's words were cut short, blocked by a tongue. Fu Hang's breathing grew heavier. The guilt of squandering 100 million was thrown to the back of his mind. Just as he couldn't hold back and was about to unleash his universe mystery art with a smirk, his hand was grabbed. Fu Hang was impatient. Qin Yuchu, however, took a step back, raised both arms by her sides, elbows tucked against her waist, and flapped her forearms up and down. Little bee? Flying? Fu Hang licked his lips hard. New tricks again? Why does it feel like the universe mystery art isn't enough? By the way, whose reward is this really? How come it feels like you're better at this than I am? They're little wings, Qin Yuchu said, her beautiful eyes wide, pouting playfully. Wings? Yes, white ones. Angel wings. Fu Hang seemed to understand. Wings of peace. A truce token? For some reason, Fu Hang didn't feel a trace of disappointment or regret. Instead, it was like a great weight had been lifted. All fear stems from insufficient firepower. No, wait, aren't I a grandmaster? The atmosphere in the conference room was still fiery, like a mall's discount section, with shouts erupting from time to time. After each shout, a group of people would put down what they were holding and rush towards the source of the sound. Looking at the scene before him, Professor Li showed a helpless expression. He was, after all, getting old and couldn't keep up with such complex intensity in operations. He could only sit aside, waiting for various data to converge. Still not much movement today, huh? Is he determined to fight a war of attrition with the other side? Or is he planning to use this opportunity to train your little Qin? A middle-aged woman with a smile, like a flower, approached Professor Li and spoke suspiciously. For 3 consecutive days, although Fu Hang had occasionally made moves, he did so with increasing secrecy. He looked like a support, while the main attacker had always been Qin Yuchu. This created a slight psychological gap for the assembled bigwigs. They hadn't gathered here from afar just to watch a little genius perform. Professor Li also frowned slightly, his expression somewhat grave. He's waiting, Professor Li said uncertainly after a long pause. Waiting? Waiting for what? Large sums of overseas capital are entering the market. A loud shout interrupted everyone's thoughts. It's here. It's finally here. No, the current stock price fluctuations aren't significant. Logically, they shouldn't have gotten the news so quickly. How many have come? An elderly man's face was serious as he asked anxiously. We've traced 3 to their source. The others are still being investigated, an analyst replied loudly. For a moment, everyone's attention was focused on the analysis team responsible for monitoring overseas venture capital. There are 7. The team leader suddenly looked up, his expression not good. Give me the list. Professor Li squinted and stood up from his chair. Taking the list, a grim smile appeared on Professor Li's lips. Indeed, it was these few notorious overseas venture capital firms. 2 of them even had official backgrounds. No, how could they be so sharp? A middle-aged man asked in disbelief. Even he, if he hadn't worked backward from the results, wouldn't have been able to tell from the market data alone that someone was deliberately targeting Hung Yu. It's Wang Taijun. Professor Li's expression was complicated. Hung Yu? You're saying Hengyu itself leaked the news to overseas venture capital, bringing in foreign capital to muddy the waters, forcing us to intervene. Professor Lee looked up, gazing deeply at the large screen in front of him. Bastard, what's the difference between this and feudal lords fighting internally and inviting foreign enemies? This is capital. Only interests, no stance. Professor Lee looked down again, carefully examining the 7 names. He had crossed paths with all 7 of them. In direct confrontations, he had 5 draws, 3 losses, and only 1 narrow victory. What do we do now? Do we really enter the market at this time? The middle-aged woman's face was ugly. Such a good opportunity, ruined just like that. Her 2 students had only arrived this morning. What a pity. No rush. Professor Lee's tone was very calm. He put down the list and turned to look to one side. That direction was where the analysis team responsible for monitoring the overseas situation was located. There's activity in the overseas financial markets, an analyst suddenly exclaimed in astonishment. In an instant, all eyes were on them again. This. The middle-aged woman almost pressed herself against the large screen, staring intently at the real-time data chart. Ha ha ha. Professor Lee suddenly threw his head back and laughed. This old man wasn't wrong about you. Is that the kid? Attacking 7 at once? And this is an all-out offensive posture right from the start. Can he handle it? How many lines is he operating simultaneously? An elderly man turned back to look at the domestic real-time data. The battle there was still fierce. Just as he turned his head, on the frequency he had been watching, someone had fired another cold arrow. Strike the mountain to awe the tiger. Professor Lee was very excited. It had been many years since he felt so exhilarated. Do we follow? If we coordinate now, we can definitely inflict heavy damage on those wolf cubs. The kind and amiable middle-aged woman made a bloodthirsty statement. If we enter now, it will escalate the situation. Now is not the time to stir up trouble. Professor Lee was actually somewhat tempted, but his sense of the bigger picture calmed him down. 3 have withdrawn, an analyst shouted. Just watch him perform. After all, that's his home ground over there. Professor Lee sat down in his chair again. Due to his status, his superiors had briefed him on Fu Hang. He stopped. The head of the overseas team said in a low voice. What about the other 4? Another one withdrew. The other 3 have gone dormant. Still not giving up? Let's see how you get out of this then. A cold glint flashed in Professor Lee's eyes. Old Lee, are you sure this is just one person? An elderly man approached, his expression very serious. He had only arrived this morning, but just the move of simultaneously sniping 7 overseas venture capital firms made him wary. This couldn't be the work of a single person. Even if the other party was a team, it would have to be a top-tier team. And the top talent in the country was almost all here right now. So this was an unknown team. This was very frightening. Professor Lee didn't speak, but turned slightly, smiling at the man in the trench coat who had been sitting in the corner of the conference room like an old monk in meditation. The elderly man who had approached understood. Given their status, they naturally recognized this type of trench coat. Old Lee? Such a monstrous talent. Are we really letting him run wild outside? The elderly man's habitual way of thinking made him consider many things. If this child could have been brought into the fold earlier, they might have been able to retire sooner. A nuclear submarine docked at the pier is far less a deterrent than one submerged in the depths of the sea. Professor Lee's wrinkled face bloomed into a smile. Professor Lee, a call from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. A staff member held up a mobile phone. Standard reply. We are conducting an exercise. To avoid unnecessary misunderstandings and losses, please tell them that the stock market is risky and investment requires caution. The man in the long trench coat answered coldly, without Professor Lee needing to speak. Get some rest. There won't be any major changes this morning. Today is Friday. In the afternoon, the real show will begin. Professor Lee, beaming with smiles, was the first to walk out of the conference room. When Shen Yuchu returned home, she was surprised to find Fu Hang wasn't there. But she soon understood. This afternoon, Fu Hang's combat style had changed. He was no longer hiding in the shadows taking potshots, but had blown the horn and launched an all-out war. A relentless barrage from almost every conceivable angle. However, what puzzled her was that today was Friday, and the market would be closed tomorrow. Wasn't this beating the grass and startling the snake? She was actually very dejected. She had tried very hard, but once that man went all out, she found herself barely able to keep up with his rhythm. Where was Fu Hang? Was he, as Shen Yuchu guessed, holed up in some secret room full of monitors, summarizing, reflecting, and formulating the next round of battle plans? No, Fu Hang was sitting in a cozy private room, utterly discomposed. Shen Qingluan had asked him out again. Yesterday's settlement. After Li Weiyang took over an entertainment company with a 100 million investment, her favorability only increased by 0.5%. After all his slick moves, it only went from 44% to 49%. This made Fu Hang very dejected. Had Li Weiyang developed an immunity to him? Ying Yanan's favorability was already strange. 45% the day before yesterday, 55% yesterday. A completely unbiological increase. 3 days ago, it was also 55%. Had this woman bugged out? But the most frustrating thing was that Shen Qingluan had once again broken through the 85% mark, reaching 18%. These past few days, he had returned to his usual routine, kowtowing twice at dawn and dusk, offering 3 incense sticks daily. He even deliberately avoided Yu Chu every morning and didn't even bring her breakfast, all to get Shen Qingluan back on track as quickly as possible. However, even though all his actions were the same as before, Shen Qingluan's resistance seemed to have reset to 0. Every lick, act of simping, yielded a positive feedback, continuously losing health. This troubled Fu Hang greatly. The 49% stake in Hengyu hadn't arrived yet, right? The 3-year period wasn't up either. If you suddenly hit him with a critical strike now and took him out, how much would you rebate? That 150,000 yuan watch. Tilting his head to look at the closed door, a thought stirred in Fu Hang's mind. No, he couldn't just sit and wait. Since the old tricks weren't working, he had to use new methods. He quickly walked to the door, glanced at the empty corridor, and tiptoed away. He couldn't let emotions continue to heat up. Such a cozy private room would be trouble. You at least have to hold out until Hengyu collapses. Out of a simp's professional ethics, one should arrive an hour early for a date. So if he left now, he probably wouldn't run into Shen Qingluan, who always arrived right on time. Rounding the street corner, Fu Hang held his phone, composing a message. And the cold system prompt arrived in his mind as expected. Today's salary has been credited. 400,000 yuan. Current conquest target favorability. Shen Qingluan, 85. 97%, Li Weiyang, 94. 49%, Ying Yanan, 45. 00%. Please continue your efforts, host. Sure enough, it had risen again, and the increase was very stable. At this rate, she might not last until Hengyu's downfall. Qingluan, sorry, I have a big tycoon client, a king-tier 100-star player, offering 30,000. I might not have time to spend with you these next few days, probably for 3 or 4 days. Fu Hang gritted his teeth and quickly sent a text message. It's okay, work is important. Take care of yourself, don't get too tired. Shen Qingluan replied instantly. Fu Hang's lips twitched. Not angry at all. I stood you up. Fu Hang lowered his head and quickly turned off his phone. Hopping onto a shared bike, he hesitated for a moment, then took out another phone and sent a text message. I'll be busy these next few days. Can't come over to accompany you. The message was for Qin Yuchu. Understand. Take care of yourself. Qin Yuchu also replied instantly. You too. Fu Hang twisted the throttle and sped towards Cloud Comfort No. 1. He needed to cool down. Lately, he had also noticed that his emotions were very unstable. A heartless assassin suddenly developing real feelings would indeed affect judgment. Just like that, Fu Hang hid in Cloud Comfort No. 1 for 2 days. These 2 days, Wang Taijun was extremely anxious. Various signs indicated that a behemoth was targeting him. He mobilized all the connections he had accumulated over the years, but the other party was either vague in their attitude or simply unreachable. And those shareholders who were originally united, after the overseas venture capitalists made a brief appearance and disappeared, also began to stir restlessly. This was actually what puzzled him the most. Why, after he had clearly leaked the information to them, did they just come and go through the motions? Shouldn't they be like sharks smelling blood, relentlessly biting off a chunk of flesh before giving up? As long as they made enough noise, the higher-ups would definitely intervene. By then, not only would his crisis be resolved, but he might even make a profit. It couldn't be that the higher-ups had reached some agreement with the other party, right? Were the higher-ups trying to take him down? Weren't those past incidents over? The more Wang Taijun thought, the more alarmed he became. His son, who was locked up, had long been forgotten. If you're unjust, don't blame me for being unrighteous. Suddenly, Wang Tiejuan's face turned ferocious, veins bulging on his forehead. These 2 days, Professor Li and his team of experts had indeed been exceptionally busy. The amount of accumulated data was simply too vast. 2 days were completely insufficient for them to sort through it. And as their analysis deepened, their admiration for Fu Hang's ingenious ideas grew. Even Professor Li felt it was nothing short of miraculous. So this is how finance is played. He felt as if he had spent the past few decades squatting at the entrance of the National Aerospace Design Bureau playing with mud. And the few men in long trench coats had very grim expressions. Their own financial system actually had so many loopholes. For a time, an entire building operating at high speed was enveloped in a thick academic atmosphere. And the overt and covert security forces around were also increasing batch by batch. Why do markets close on weekends? Who made this rule? The flower-faced, middle-aged woman put down her data chart, her face full of indignation. These 2 days have been too torturous. In the past few days, she truly felt like she was listening to great Confucian scholars expound on classics or eminent monks discuss the Tao. Every piece of data she understood brought her sudden enlightenment. Suddenly stopping for 2 days, she felt she had lost out big time. That kid, what has he been doing these past few days? Near the door, Professor Li surreptitiously pulled aside a man in a trench coat. The man frowned, glanced around, and whispered something in Professor Li's ear. He started an entertainment company, released 2 songs. Entertainment company? Professor Li was astonished. Yes, he's very talented. The songs are very good, the man in the trench coat replied seriously. Entertainers mislead the nation. Professor Li was heartbroken. He felt that after this matter was over, perhaps he should suggest to the higher-ups to issue an entertainment restriction order, lest a pillar of the state neglect his duties and lose his ambition by indulging in trivial pursuits. Another Monday, Qin Yuchu arrived at the office early. The number of computers in her office had increased again. Monitors practically covered the entire desk. These 2 days, she had barely rested for a moment. From the information she had gathered these 2 days, she discovered that the relentless barrage that afternoon was not the work of Fu Hang alone. He was still playing a supporting role, and the main attackers were actually overseas venture capitalists. The wolves had come. This was actually within her expectations. Her goal was not to acquire Hung Yu, but to bring it down. So, the wolves were part of her plan. She just hadn't expected their sense of smell to be so keen. Entering the market so early, would it attract the attention of the higher-ups? She really wanted to call Professor Li, but she resisted. What you asked me to do, I will definitely do. Changing her glasses, Qin Yuchu took off her jacket and let down her bangs. If her opponent included Professor Li, could she hold her own? Yochu's star-like eyes gleamed with a cold light. If you want to go crazy, I'll go crazy with you. Opposite the Yuanbua trading president's assistant office, in the office exclusively for the HR manager, Shen Qingluan silently lowered the blinds, her expression unusually serene. That woman was still full of drive every day. Yuanbua was developing better and better. In time, even if it insisted on not going public, it would become an ocean-going giant. But none of this seemed to have anything to do with her anymore. Her captivating peach blossom eyes glanced again at that other office, the one that had never truly been used. The mysterious president still hadn't shown his face. Not truly seeing this man might be a regret, perhaps. Shen Qingluan walked back to her own office, carefully looked at the Ganlu milk tea profit transfer certificate again, a faint smile on her lips. The president was truly generous to women. That GT900 was actually given to Yuchu. A sophomore in college, driving a 33 million yuan sports car, sitting in a luxuriously decorated office, commanding the winds and clouds, looking down on the world. This should be the life she dreamed of, right? Envious? Perhaps. Jealous? Maybe. But was all this really what she wanted? Shen Qingluan smiled. The image of that figure in the Real Madrid jersey suddenly appeared in her mind. He should be holed up in some rental apartment right now, with heavy dark circles under his eyes, clutching his phone, fighting desperately, right? 30,000 yuan. To him, this was a huge sum. After all, for this 30,000, he even stood her up, canceling their dinner appointment at the last minute. But what was he fighting so hard for? Money? Shen Qingluan lowered her head, pressing hard on the 150,000 yuan watch on her wrist. Her watery, peach blossom eyes truly misted over at this moment. From today onwards, I won't let you fight alone anymore. Our life, we'll strive for it together. Our happiness, we'll guard it together. Wiping away the hot tears from the corners of her eyes with a tissue, Shen Qingluan opened a blank document and seriously typed 3 words, resignation letter. At 3 in the afternoon, Shen Qingluan stood outside her office, turned to look at the neatly organized office, her eyes calm. She stepped forward in her small high heels and stood outside Qin Yuchu's office, gently knocking on the door. No response. Shen Qingluan knocked again. Still no response. Shen Qingluan listened intently. She could hear slight movements inside. Clearly, Qin Yuchu was in there. She took a deep breath, turned the doorknob, and pushed it open. In the workplace, this was very impolite, but it didn't matter anymore. She just wanted to hand her the resignation letter in person, and to ask her to help pass on a message. To say thank you to that mysterious president, and then sorry. I'm busy right now. As the door was pushed open, Qin Yuchu didn't even look to see who was standing outside, and said coldly. Shen Qingluan was slightly taken aback, but didn't feel offended by the cold tone, because she really was busy. A full 7 monitors were set up on the desk. Qin Yuchu was like an octopus, chin tucked, head down, her cold eyes hidden behind thick black-framed glasses, her delicate face showing no sign of life. It was as if this was a high-speed machine. Her eyes were terrifying, devoid of their usual agility and wisdom. The only thing that remained the same was their clarity, a clarity so pure it contained no impurities, no emotion. Her gaze swept over the monitors flashing with various charts. She roughly knew what Qin Yuchu was doing. Indeed, a girl who could drive a GT900 wouldn't be so simple. Was this why the president favored her and doted on her so much? No wonder she had such confidence back then. This alone eliminated 999% of the competitors, right? Besides, she was also so young and beautiful. Sorry, I didn't mean to disturb. I hope you can help me pass this on to the president. Shen Qingluan placed the envelope on the table and silently took 2 steps back. The words she had planned to say, she couldn't bring herself to utter them. Close the door. The reply she received was 2 syllables that sounded as if they were mechanically synthesized. Shen Qingluan didn't linger, smiled self-deprecatingly, retreated outside, and closed the office door. It didn't matter anymore. Everything here no longer had anything to do with her. Returning to her office, she bent down to pick up a box she had packed on her desk. The box was heavy. It contained her personal belongings. While packing, she was stunned to discover that most of these items were gifts from Fu Hang. Picking up the box, her smile was exceptionally gentle, exceptionally warm. Fu Hang had been preparing in the mansion for a full 48 hours. When he came downstairs again, a cold light flickered in his eyes. The enemy will enter the battlefield in 30 seconds. Come on, Qingluan, let us gallop in the canyon, fight in the river, outweed each other in the bushes, and lick our wounds at the fountain. The top lane is where we belong. Through 2 days of analysis, he felt he had grasped the root of Shen Qingluan's emotional changes. Post-cataclysm stress response. Also a kind of suspension bridge effect. So, as long as he guided her slightly, unintentionally displaying his own predicament and helplessness in life, and then showed her the world's prosperity, under the strong contrast, her dormant Tao heart would surely slowly revive. Actually, it didn't need to revive too much, just enough to get through this rough patch for Hengyu. When Shen Qingluan successfully obtained shares worth 50 billion, he wouldn't be afraid of her Tao heart being unstable then. 5 billion. Even Fu Hang was going crazy. Let alone you, Shen Qingluan. And then, just pick the right moment. I'm not pretending anymore. I'm laying my cards on the table. A fatal blow, 100% defense-breaking critical hit. 5 billion rebate in hand. Wahaha. Yeah. Just as he stepped out of the residential complex gate, Fu Hang suddenly froze. Being followed? His Grandmaster senses keenly picked up 3 lines of sight directed at him from very unreasonable positions. That business van, that pancake stall, and in front of the pancake stall. Ingyanen? Is she crazy? Who's in charge of this operation? Chen Xiao? Surely not. Letting this girl tail someone? No, they weren't together. When Ingyanen realized he was looking at her, she actually hid behind the pancake stall, and the uncle making pancakes had a constipated look on his face. Fu Hang's lips twitched as he walked towards Ingyanen. Officer Ing, you're not chasing human traffickers again, are you? Fu Hang was speechless. He didn't shy away and stood directly in front of the pancake stall. Huh? Fu Hang. Ingyanen feigned surprise. But this expression was not only obviously staged, but also very exaggerated. This made the uncle, who was lowering his head to make pancakes, turn away, unable to watch. Officer Ing, Fu Hang pouted, looking helplessly at her. I'm not an officer anymore. I resign. Ingyanen stuck her neck out and replied weakly. You resign? Fu Hang was Lingzhu stunned. No way. How many merits have I given you? You were on the verge of a meteoric rise. Why did you resign? Yes, I found out I'm not actually suited for this profession. Ingyanen bit her lip, her gaze darting to the side. Fu Hang's mouth twitched. You finally realized? The fact that you're still alive probably means your ancestors have used up all their connections in the afterlife. So what are you doing now? I'm buying a pancake. Yanan suddenly picked up a pancake in front of her and took a bite. Has she paid? Fu Hang turned his head, looking meaningfully at the uncle. 8 yuan. The pancake uncle said awkwardly, raising an eyebrow. Damn it, this kid saw through it. It can't be right. I've been doing this for so many years. Tui, why are there onions? Yanan suddenly spat out the pancake in her mouth. Then, as if realizing something, she looked down weakly at Fu Hang's leather shoes. So why are you following me? Fu Hang rolled his eyes, speechless, constantly reminding himself in his heart, 12 billion. 12 billion. I have something I want to ask you. Yanan suddenly looked up, staring straight at Fu Hang. Fu Hang nodded, indicating for her to go ahead. Why did you save me? Yanan's expression was very serious. Does saving someone need a reason? Doesn't it? Does it? But we scholars, when we see injustice, we draw our swords to help. Since I began my studies, I have been immersed in the classics and histories, understanding the great righteousness of the world through fragrant scrolls, by no means to seek fleeting fame or fortune, confined to a study, becoming an ignorant scholar who turns a deaf ear to the outside world. So, is saving you strange? Fu Hang's speech was deafening, full of profound righteousness. Then why did you hit me? You even licked me. Yanan's eyes suddenly turned red, her expression coy. Fu Hang's righteous aura instantly dispersed, his lips trembling 9 times in a daze. He silently chanted in his heart, a Taoist protective chant. What kind of demon are you? Show your true form. What kind of twisted logic is this? Fu Hang awkwardly turned his head and found the pancake-making uncle had turned his back, seriously folding a cloth on the cutting board, his shoulders shaking. Fu Hang felt he couldn't stay here. This place might even be live-streaming. Fu Hang grabbed Yanan and walked to a secluded spot. The pancake-making uncle finally couldn't hold it in anymore and pretended to cough vigorously. Damn, I knew this job wasn't simple. It's this explosive? That girl should be old Ying's only daughter, right? And in his hidden earpiece, a burst of dense coughing also came through. You used to be a police officer, right? And it seems you were a case analyst. Fu Hang guided her patiently. Then haven't you tried to analyze why I did that? Fu Hang taught her earnestly. I know you. You were trying to save me. So, Fu Hang's eyes widened. But Yanan suddenly covered her right cheek. This place had been slapped twice, and there was also a tongue. It still felt wet to the touch. Fu Hang said nothing, just quietly looked at her. 12 billion, 12 billion, 12 billion. But I've been thinking about you a lot these past few days. Yanan lowered her hand, her eyes evasive. Fu Hang's eyes widened again. He felt like he was being hit on. No. Are these words something a woman whose favorability hovers between 45% and 55% can say? But I hate you. Yanan's tone suddenly changed, her eyes becoming fierce. It's over, this girl is done for. This fierce hate you, to Fu Hang's ears, sounded like Daji's voice pack saying, You rascal, I hate you. This is basically a confession, isn't it? I haven't even started simping for you yet. How many times have we even met? Like you said, I either hit you or molested you. How did you manage to self-strategize for yourself? No, I feel there's a problem here. Fu Hang subconsciously took a step back. Yanan bit her lip, staring hard at Fu Hang. Your major, you should have studied psychology in school, right? Criminal psychology. Yanan nodded. Look, your current situation, combined with everything that has happened, haven't you considered that perhaps? Fu Hang's patient guidance didn't begin. His eyes, looking at Yanan, suddenly widened, then gradually lost focus. Congratulations, host, for completing the conquest mission. Current target, Shen Qingluan, favorability 90.01%. Reward settlement will now proceed. The settlement reward will be distributed within 5 working days. Please pay attention to receiving it. Damn it, what did I miss? Shen Qingluan settled? Haven't I seen you for 3 days? Wasn't it just 97% yesterday? Yanan lowered her head, her heart beating very fast. She looked at the man who, just a moment ago, was so calm, so composed, so rational, so wise. He suddenly glared, his eyes staring at her, gradually losing focus, and then his expression progressively twisted and deformed. It's coming. It's coming. He's going to do it again. He's not going to lick me again, is he? What should I do? I can't beat him. Should I resist? This is out in public. Can he lick the other side? Yanan squeezed her eyes shut, not daring to look directly at those terrifying eyes. She turned her head, and, as if possessed, offered her left cheek forward a little. System detection. Current target, Shen Qingluan, meets the requirements for Phase 2 conquest. Mission objective, Achieve 100% favorability. Mission reward. 1. Sum of all income during the conquest of this target. 2. Reimbursement of all expenses during the conquest period, including public funds expenditure. The cold voice continued. Fu Hang's pupils finally focused, only to see a coy, timid face in front of him, seemingly resisting yet inviting. I have something to do now. Let's talk next time. Fu Hang ignored this thick-skinned, reckless girl and turned to leave. Shen Qingluan, don't do anything stupid, okay? You at least have to last a few more days than Hung Yu. Where are you going? Ing Yanin, not getting the expected tongue, asked in surprise. I'm very busy. Fu Hang's patience ran out, and he walked away without looking back. Are you going to see another woman? Ing Yanin took a step forward and questioned loudly. The distant pancake stall coughed again. Yes. Fu Hang turned his head and looked seriously at Ing Yanin. Your conquest plan hasn't even been put on the agenda yet. You just behave yourself for now. Go over there, take a number, and wait patiently in line. I'm going too. Ing Yanin suddenly took another step forward. Are you crazy? I'm going to pick up girls. Have you ever seen someone bring a girl along to pick up other girls? Fu Hang bared his teeth, trying to make himself look as odious as possible. Ing Yanin fell silent, looking down at the ground without speaking. Miss Brave Lady, you've lost your job now. No, you're free now. You have plenty of time to squander. You should seize the pricelessness of youth. Go see the mountains, see the sea, see the great. No, don't go to the border. You should go see the bustling world. Go where there are many people. Experience the hardships of the world. No, experience the warmth of the mortal world. Walk around more, see more. It will be helpful for you. Fu Hang spoke anxiously and incoherently. Seeing Ing Yanin still looking down, Fu Hang ignored her and, turning around, took out his phone. Damn it. The call went through, but no one answered. And on the other side, Shen Qingluan sat quietly in a simple yet elegant office. Opposite her sat Li Weiyang, her expression complex. Please thank the president for his kindness on my behalf, but please help me return this to him. Shen Qingluan, with a serene smile, calmly pushed the 3-year profit transfer agreement across the table. Li Weiyang's brow furrowed, her mind shaken. Originally, I wanted Yuchu to help me return it to him, but then I thought, since you gave it to me, it would be more appropriate to give it to you. Shen Qingluan smiled sincerely. But this is his obsession, Li Weiyang said, her expression complex, unable to hold back. Shen Qingluan looked very different today. Those captivating peach blossom eyes were no longer alluring, but instead exuded a sense of ease and open-mindedness. But it has nothing to do with me. And thank you for that slap. It woke me up and let me know what I truly want. Shen Qingluan said no more. After putting the item down, she slowly stood up. Li Weiyang opened her mouth, her gaze fixed on the agreement. The ex-girlfriend plus white moonlight had withdrawn. What about herself, the ex-girlfriend plus other woman? For a moment, Li Weiyang's thoughts were in turmoil. She didn't even notice Shen Qingluan leaving. Walking out of Ganlu Milk Tea's headquarters, Shen Qingluan suddenly felt an unprecedented sense of relief. Finally, she no longer had to wear a mask and disguise to face the world. She strolled along the bustling street, for the first time feeling a sense of detachment, rather than being swept along by the crowd, living a mundane life. Early winter had arrived, the cold wind somewhat bleak. The evening sun failed to bring a trace of warmth. But as Shen Qingluan gazed at the golden afterglow in the sky, she felt as if bathed in spring sunshine. Her pace was unhurried, simply following the tactile paving on the ground, counting the stone slabs one by one. She thought of their first meeting, that phrase, "Can I help you carry that?" She thought of the first time they watched a movie, how she pretended it was too dark to see and grabbed his arm. She thought of the first time he gave her a ride on his electric scooter, how he sat bolt upright, his shoulders trembling. She thought of the first time she used that smile she had painstakingly practiced on him, and how he impulsively bought her a 150,000 yuan watch. She thought of many, many things. The smile on her face grew sweeter. So much had happened between them. Then, today, could they also have another first? At this thought, Shen Qingluan's cheeks felt a little hot. She shyly lowered her head, holding her handbag in her hands. The fallen leaves on the ground were beautiful. She didn't know what kind they were. To fall at this season, they must be reluctant to leave this worldly scenery, right? Little did you know, your departure added another touch of brilliance to this bleak early winter. Shen Qingluan's lips curved upwards. She slowly raised her head, only to be pleasantly surprised to find, in her blurred vision, a panting man, hands on his knees, looking at her and gasping for breath. Shen Qingluan's smile bloomed as she ran towards that figure. The beautiful silhouette stirred a gentle breeze, sweeping up the scattered fallen leaves, as if gliding through a musical score, as if running out from a painting. So beautiful it was intoxicating, so beautiful it was heartbreaking. She leaped high and threw herself into his arms. Fu Hang's body stiffened, his mind a complete blank. The body in his arms was very hot, so hot it made his organs boil. The body in his arms was very soft, so soft it dislocated his bones and sinews. What's going on? Fu Hang, can we start over? The head buried in his chest burrowed forward desperately, as if trying to get inside him. Qingluan. Fu Hang's hands, frozen mid-air, didn't know what to do. The delicate figure in his arms suddenly looked up, her mesmerizing peach blossom eyes gazing straight at him, filled with tenderness. Let's get married? A deep and enduring whisper. Before Fu Hang could react in astonishment, Shen Qingluan stood on tiptoe, her fiery lips pressing against his. Her kiss was clumsy but passionate. This made Fu Hang momentarily forget to respond. And precisely because of this, Fu Hang's kiss also seemed clumsy. After a long, long time, Shen Qingluan bit her lip, shyly pressing against Fu Hang's chest again, her hands tightly clasped around his neck. She felt warm all over, tingly and weak. Fu Hang's eyes were still dazed. He helplessly placed his hands on Shen Qingluan's shoulders, unsure whether to embrace her tightly or push her away. Marriage? Did you just propose to me? Did you also just kiss me? A French kiss? Fu Hang felt it was very unreal. The script wasn't supposed to go like this. His eyes flickered, unconsciously scanning the surrounding scene, trying to determine if all this was an illusion. But the next moment, his dazed pupils seemed to have been struck by a cross slash. His trembling pupils were split down the middle, divided into 4 segments, scattering piece by piece within his hollow eye sockets. Qin? You? Chu? Just less than 10 meters away, on the steps, a graceful figure stood quietly, holding 2 takeaway cups of Ganlu milk tea. Fu Hang looked up in astonishment, only then realizing he was standing at the entrance of the flagship Ganlu milk tea shop in Century Plaza. Right? He couldn't contact Shen Qingluan, but he vaguely remembered her saying she liked heart like a knife's cut and would come over to listen to Lei Lu sing whenever she had free time. So, he had come to try his luck. What you encounter around the corner isn't always love. It could also be Zhong Kuei's hook. The person in his arms hugged him tighter and tighter. Fu Hang just stared blankly at Yu Chu, who was so close. She stood there quietly, as always. Fu Hang didn't know how long she had been standing there. Her expression was calm, so calm that Fu Hang couldn't discern any joy or anger, just like that time in the underground parking lot, standing outside the car window. But the difference was that day she turned and left. Today, she just stood there quietly, like a mere passerby. The scene seemed to freeze. The 3 of them maintained a moment of peace and quiet. The cold wind swept through, and the scattered fallen leaves danced lightly again, drifting aimlessly into the distance. Just like Fu Hang's heart at this moment. Blank, empty, light, and hollow. Hello, boss. A surprised exclamation sounded by Qin Yuchu's ear. It was a passing waiter. But this exclamation didn't make Qin Yuchu blink. However, this exclamation alerted the other waiters inside. Hello, boss. A chorus of neat voices came from inside the milk tea shop. This was the boss. Look at Manager Xia. A month ago, he was a waiter just like them. And then somehow, he became Store Manager Xia, Director Xia, President Xia, CEO of an entertainment company with a registered capital of 100 million. Becoming CEO, marrying a beautiful, rich woman. With such a precedent, how could the others not follow suit? This neat chorus still failed to move the statue-like Qin Yuchu, but it made the bald man, who was watching from the entrance, suddenly snap back to reality. He was initially astonished. He wanted to stop it, but he was powerless. One was the boss's wife. The other was a potential boss's wife. What could he do? But reminded by his colleagues inside, he abruptly stood straight. This straightening, as if a signal, caused a row of black-clothed men to stomp their feet in unison and stand straight. Then, a 90-degree bow. Hello, boss. The sound was deafening. Actually, when the waiter shouted the first time, Shen Qingluan was startled. She looked up from Fu Hang's embrace in astonishment and saw Qin Yuchu. Then, a row of black-clothed men bowed respectfully towards her. She was taken aback and subconsciously hid behind Fu Hang. Boss. She looked at the black-clothed men in confusion, then looked up at Fu Hang. Then, she saw a pair of bewildered yet panicked eyes. Her gaze shifted back to Qin Yuchu, then to the sign above her head. Ganlu milk tea. Boss. A terrifying yet laughable thought flashed through her mind. The boss they're calling isn't you, is it? Shen Qingluan's lips trembled as she looked at Fu Hang in disbelief. Fu Hang licked his lips, his eyes still dazed. How did the plot unfold like this? This wasn't my plan, and you hasn't fallen yet. You're the owner of Ganlu Milk Tea? Shen Qingluan took an incredulous step back, the astonishment in her eyes completely replacing her earlier tenderness. She looked up at Qin Yuchu, who had remained standing motionless. Qin Yuchu's expression was strange. Her beautiful eyes were still clear, yet it was as if she wore a mask, revealing no emotion. So, you're the president of Wood Trading. Shen Qingluan took another step back, her voice unconsciously rising. The row of men in black, not having received a signal from their leader, remained in their bowing posture. The bald man groaned inwardly. He felt he might have caused trouble. This flattery had gone too far. Qingluan. Fu Hang forced a smile, glanced at Qin Yuchu, then turned back to Shen Qingluan. Are you playing me? Shen Qingluan's eyes suddenly turned red, filled with disbelief and horror. You've been playing me all along. Shen Qingluan's emotions suddenly ignited. 6 years? You've been acting in front of me for 6 whole years. Fu Hang opened his mouth, feeling like this development was increasingly off-kilter. You knew I was a gold digger, knew I was vain, so you pulled this stunt just to laugh at me? Is this the kind of fun you rich people have? Is this a game for you wealthy folks? You're even more despicable than Wang Haitao. He only wanted my body, but you. Shen Qingluan suddenly roared hysterically. You toyed with me for 6 whole years. Just now, I genuinely wanted to marry you. Shen Qingluan's face was streaked with tears, her tone desolate, her blurred vision filled with despair. Fu Hang looked utterly astonished. No, weren't you the one toying with my feelings for 6 years? Why does it sound like it was me? Fu Hang was at a loss, looking at those despairing eyes, unable to utter a word. Is this what rich people are like? Shen Qingluan turned her head, casting a cold glance at Qin Yuchu. Finally, she understood that phrase. You can't snatch him away. Fu Hang, you can't snatch him away either. Thank you. Shen Qingluan looked directly at Fu Hang again, her eyes filled with venom. She turned, whipping her head around. Teardrops flew with her turn, her solitary figure stumbling into the depths of winter. Fu Hang still just stood there with his mouth open, unable to say anything. How did things develop like this? The bald man, still bowing, felt a pat on his shoulder. He saw those delicate little high heels. The boss's wife had spoken. He straightened up uneasily, but quickly and tactfully led his men away. Click! The sound of a lighter flickered by Fu Hang's ear, followed by the sizzling sound of burning tobacco. A lit cigarette was passed to his lips. Want to take a walk? Qin Yuchu's voice was still calm. So calm it made Fu Hang feel like he was looking at a stranger. Fu Hang opened his mouth, numbly taking the cigarette, and gave Qin Yuchu a complex look, but he couldn't detect a trace of emotion in her eyes. Is she important? Sitting down on a patch of grass in the park, Qin Yuchu turned her head to look at Fu Hang. Fu Hang held the cigarette, letting the smoke diffuse across his face. He knew what Qin Yuchu was referring to. I don't know. Fu Hang took a sharp drag from the cigarette, his eyes filled with confusion. Why does it feel like I'm the one who did something wrong? Aren't you a green tea? I played along with you for 6 years, wasn't that right? You were the one whose Tao heart suddenly shattered, who suddenly wanted to marry me. And, knowing I'm rich, shouldn't you be happy? Shouldn't your favorability immediately break through 100%? Why that look of despair? If she's important, go get her back. After a long silence, the sound of milk tea flowing through a straw came from beside him. Fu Hang didn't speak, just lowered his head and smoked. She submitted her resignation this afternoon. When I went to check, her things were already packed. I heard what she said just now, including the first sentence. She's vain, a gold digger, and has many little schemes. But she's actually very simple. Shen Qingluan, simple. Fu Hang was speechless. She was confident she had you wrapped around her finger. But you, in her most confident domain, slapped her hard across the face. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to accept it either. That was her only source of confidence. Qin Yuchu suddenly thought of Fu Hang's support and assistance these past few days. This feeling of being crushed in one's area of greatest expertise and confidence was truly awful. What are you trying to say? Fu Hang seemed very agitated, not just because of the system's mission, but also due to his struggle with human nature. Since awakening the system, apart from Qin Yuchu, these women were just missions, clients, NPCs in his eyes. No different from red or blue buffs. He had never thought that NPCs were also people. I don't know what you're planning, nor am I clear about what exactly happened between you two. I just want to say, if she's very important, then go get her back. You really don't mind at all? Fu Heng turned abruptly, asking this question for the second time. I don't know. Qin Yuchu bit her straw, looking down at the grass on the ground. Even in early winter, the artificial turf was still lush and green, exuding vitality. Fu Heng's eyes flickered. This, I don't know, felt like a punch to his heart. Fu Heng anxiously stubbed out his cigarette, only to immediately light another. If, one day, I don't remember you, you won't forget. Before Fu Heng could finish, Qin Yuchu spoke calmly. I said if. Fu Heng seemed even more agitated. There are no ifs. Qin Yuchu's reply was still unshakable. You're very smart. You should know that people can't really have everything go their way. Fu Heng lay down powerlessly on the grass, looking up at the sky that was gradually darkening. The sun had set, the starlight had yet to appear, and the city's bright lights seemed particularly desolate and weak under the shroud of night. I can't change the world, nor did I ever think of changing you. But I can change myself. Qin Yuchu also lay down beside Fu Heng, tilting her head slightly to rest it on his shoulder. Then what if one day I'm gone? Then I'll go find you. What if you can't find me? Then I'll wait. What if you wait and I don't come? I'll wait until you do. Fu Heng fell silent. He closed his eyes tightly, raised his hand, and pulled Qin Yuchu tightly into his embrace. Not worth it. After a long pause, 3 words escaped Fu Heng's lips. Whether it's worth it or not is for me to decide. If you cry, I'll cry with you. If you laugh, I'll laugh with you. If you want to go crazy, I'll go crazy with you too. If you want to cause trouble, I can cause trouble with you too. Nestled in Fu Heng's arms, Yuchu was as delicate as a kitten, but her words carried determination and stubbornness. She seemed to recall the events in the financial market over the past few days. Malicious competition, market manipulation, inviting foreign enemies. Even if one day you are betrayed by everyone, an enemy to the whole world, I, Qin Yuchu, will search to the highest heavens and deepest hells to be with you. Fu Heng suddenly sat up, roughly pulling Qin Yuchu's head over, pressing his forehead firmly against hers. Their eyes met. Qin Yuchu's eyes were still calm, but Fu Heng's were filled with brutality and coldness. I will, absolutely, not forget you. I swear, even if I am condemned by thousands. At the day's settlement, Li Weiyang's favorability remained at 49%. Ing Yanan was still bugged out back to 45.0%, and Shen Qingluan, as expected, was delisted, dropping to 24.12%, falling below the passing line. System? Is this a failed conquest? Fu Heng was somewhat dejected. If the conquest failed, many related things would be reclaimed. He couldn't even remember which items were rewarded from Shen Qingluan. Current target Shen Qingluan has entered Phase 2. Failure determination is no longer based on favorability. Fu Heng breathed a slight sigh of relief. Understood. Phase 1 failure was determined by favorability dropping below 25%, but in Phase 2, once it broke 90%, this restriction no longer applied. So how was it judged? Fu Heng understood in his heart. Getting married to someone else, probably. The next morning, he received a call from Xia Xiaofeng. The milk tea shop had received a package. Although Xia Xiaofeng no longer worked at Ganlu Milk Tea and had become his CEO, the milk tea shop employees didn't have Fu Heng's number. Therefore, after receiving Xia Xiaofeng's relayed call, Fu Heng immediately rushed to the milk tea shop. After all, he had just completed his second Phase 1 settlement. However, to his surprise, the package was not a system reward. It was left by Shen Qingluan, a rather large box filled with various gifts. Some used, some still unopened. Looking at the large box full of miscellaneous items, Fu Heng smoked 2 cigarettes under the no smoking sign in the milk tea shop. After taking the large box back to his rental apartment, Fu Heng sat on the bed in his rental and tried sending Shen Qingluan a message. The message wasn't long, just 2 words. Qingluan. Fu Heng's eyes flickered. She didn't block me? 12%, and it dropped straight from 91%, even more ruthless than Pinduoduo's bargaining. She even returned all the gifts from the past few years, but she didn't block me? Fu Heng stared quietly at the screen, lost in thought. Meanwhile, yesterday's events seemed to have no effect on Qin Yuchu. She put on her thick black-framed glasses and began a new round of attacks on the computer. However, starting today, she found she couldn't keep up, completely couldn't keep up. She rarely paused her operations, but she did so now, briefly lost in a daze for a moment. It seems Shen Qingluan is really important. Taking off her glasses and rubbing her face hard, Qin Yuchu adjusted her mentality and tactics, refocusing on the computer. The mysterious black hand that had been assisting her finally bared its fangs. He no longer hid in the shadows taking potshots, but let out a bloodthirsty roar. From this morning onwards, Qin Yuchu, who had originally been the main attacker, was completely relegated to a supporting role. And frustratingly, even in a supporting role, she struggled immensely to keep up. This smokeless battle, after he stopped holding back, lasted only 7 days. Before the market closed on the 7th day, she received a call from Professor Li. Wang Taijun had surrendered. An overseas financial institution had acquired all of Wang Taijun's shares. The Wang family, from then on, had no connection whatsoever with the Hengyu Group. Qin Yuchu felt a sense of loss. Looking at the data chart on her computer, she was at a loss whether to laugh or cry. I was given 20% of the shares to wreak havoc, and after fighting so hard for so long, I even got 2 pimples on my forehead. Now that the Wang family is crushed, the shares in my hand have actually become 27%. I've been smashing for so long, and I actually made a profit. When she returned home that day, Fu Heng was rolling up his sleeves and mopping the floor. Looking at the man in a cartoon apron, looking so virtuous, she even forgot to change her shoes. "Why are you back so early today?" Fu Heng was surprised, glancing at the wall clock. It was only 4 o'clock. At this time, the stock market hadn't even closed yet. "Don't talk." Qin Yuchu threw down her handbag and, still in her small high heels, pressed herself against him. "Don't move, right here. Then, I'll draw the curtains. They can't see. Don't take off the apron." 2 hours later, Fu Heng lay on the sofa, gasping for breath, the cartoon apron hanging on him like a tattered willow in winter. Fu Heng looked at the ceiling with a complex expression, his mind racing through upcoming recipes. Right? Wasn't there a ride-hailing driver who said he knew an old Chinese medicine doctor? Damn, I didn't get his contact information. Qin Yuchu, wrapped in a goose-down bathrobe, was radiant. Barefoot, she picked up her discarded handbag and rummaged through it. After a short while, Assistant Qin pulled out a wad of cash, about a few thousand yuan. Without a word, she walked over to Fu Heng and proudly placed the cash down. Fu Heng was utterly astonished. A very mysterious and unfamiliar atmosphere brewed in the living room. "What's this for?" Fu Heng asked tentatively. "For you, of course. You worked hard," Assistant Qin said with a gentle smile. "Why are you giving me money?" Veins throbbed on Fu Heng's forehead. You kept saying thank you for your patronage. I'm just playing along." "You're playing along with this?" Fu Heng was furious. Assistant Qin blinked, a hint of suspicion in her eyes. "I looked it up online. This is the market price, isn't it? This is my salary. This is what I earned with my own abilities. I'm not using a man's money to pay for you, okay?" Fu Heng looked down at the bright red bills on the table. "So, this is payment for services? I've finally gone down this road. I haven't disgraced my sect, have I?" Raising his cold eyes, a grim smile appeared on Fu Heng's lips. "You gave too much, but I don't have a habit of giving refunds, so..." An hour later, Fu Heng squatted on the kitchen floor, meticulously picking up the torn pieces of the apron, his face looking very dejected. "This Grandmaster must be watered down. Also, are you sure you don't have a system? It's only been a few days. You're already better at the universe mystery art than I am. Why do I feel like the skill was given to you by the system through me?" "So Hengyu is finished?" During dinner, Qin Yuchu, for the first time at home, talked about the financial battle that had lasted for a full half-month. To be precise, the Wang family is finished. Hengyu is still around. Qin Yuchu raised an eyebrow. "Just like with those few thousand yuan in cash, I will do my best to cooperate with your performance." So fast, a thought stirred in Fu Heng's mind. "System, has client number 1's shares arrived?" 49% of Hengyu Group's shares have been transferred to the target client Shen Qingluan's name. "Beautiful." Fu Heng clenched his fists. "When you find out about this huge sum, let's see how many days you can hold out." "Awaken. Athena. How could not be fast?" Qin Yuchu gave Fu Heng a coquettish, sidelong glance. Just as she had evaluated Shen Qingluan, being shown up in one's most familiar and confident domain didn't actually feel good. But if the person showing you up was your beloved, then it seemed different. The 20% shares became 27. 14%. "When are you transferring them back?" "You keep them," Fu Heng said without looking up. "Then, should I continue to hold? Or find a time to cash out? You decide. I don't understand these things." Fu Heng picked up a chicken wing for Qin Yuchu. Qin Yuchu gave him another sidelong glance. "You don't understand. I'll show you don't understand later. By the way, nothing happened in the stock market, right?" Fu Heng suddenly realized. He never traded stocks, so he knew nothing about them. But he occasionally scrolled through news that popped up. This time, they had directly targeted a listed company. Would it affect innocent bystanders? Hearing this, Qin Yuchu looked up again, her expression strange. Then she suddenly smiled. There were definitely fluctuations, especially this week. But, luckily, those two made a noble sacrifice and filled all the holes. Retail investors didn't lose much. Those two firms. Fu Hang raised his brows in surprise. Yeah, those two overseas vultures trying to swoop in and snatch a piece of the pie. Qin Yuchu pouted. Still pretending? Please, I'm not giving you any more credit. Truth be told, what impressed her the most in this acquisition war wasn't Fu Hang's unconventional strategies or clever tactics. It was his ability to see the bigger picture. She had fully expected the market to tank, even if they managed to take over Hengyu. That's why she'd once warned him that he'd end up betrayed by all, enemies everywhere. She had even mentally prepared herself to face off with Professor Li. Who would have thought? Fu Hang had factored in the wolves from overseas too. He didn't just beat them. He baited them into a trap, slammed the door shut, and split the spoils on the spot. Most likely, aside from a few greedy retail traders, even the followers made a small profit. Overseas VCs? Fu Hang's expression finally shifted. A chill ran down his spine. Thank God the system came through. If it hadn't, his reckless gamble might have led to disaster. He'd read too many stories about those bloodsuckers. Once they caught the scent of profit, they left nothing but scorched earth behind. Seeing the change in Fu Hang's demeanor, Qin Yuchu furrowed her brow slightly, but wisely held her tongue. This move? Legendary. Textbook worthy. Even Professor Li's phone call had hinted they'd been watching closely. I need to make a call, Fu Hang said, suddenly putting down his chopsticks and heading to the balcony. Wei Young, have you eaten? His tone was soft, gentle even. He had no choice but to be gentle. Lately, everything had been going wrong. Maybe the old saying was true. When you're lucky in love, your career suffers. Shen Qingluan had vanished, and now even Li Weiyang was avoiding him. He had planned to win Weiyang over while Qingluan was in hiding, then focus fully on Qingluan once she recovered. But somehow, Weiyang started dodging him. One day, she was in Sand City, the next in Hangzhou, never in the same place twice. Yet her milk tea brand, Ganlu, had exploded in popularity, rapidly expanding into surrounding cities. According to Weiyang, by next month, they'd hit 30 locations. Thankfully, Shen Qingluan's reward had finally come through. Otherwise, their songwriter, Qinghe the Jinx, would never be able to keep up with Weiyang's expansion speed. Qingluan's reward? The Otherworld hit song library, a mysterious archive that appeared in Fu Hang's mind in the early morning on day 5. At first, he'd been pissed. I chased her for 6 years, and this is what I get. But then he thought of the royalties he could earn from those songs. Compared to Weiyang's reward, 20% of Hengyu Group, this song library was a hidden gold mine. That bizarre song-sharing quest line vanished after the reward dropped, which made sense. I just ate, Weiyang answered, startled, her voice tinged with unease. Where are you now? Fu Hang caught that nervous undertone. Nervous? At 94. 49% affection? I've got something going on, she hesitated. You still have money? Fu Hang took a deep breath, deciding not to push. These back-and-forth calls had gone nowhere recently, and her affection level hadn't budged from 94. 49%. Wait, are you out of money? Weiyang's tone shifted, full of concern. Pretty much. Fu Hang smirked, but he wasn't asking to throw money around. He was asking to borrow it. Sometimes, the best way to break a romantic deadlock was to ask for a loan. Weiyang clearly hesitated. It wasn't that she didn't want to lend it. She'd invested every last cent into Ganlu milk tea. I'm not asking you. I'm asking your family. His voice was calm, almost casual. How much? She asked seriously after a pause. If Fu Hang was asking for help, it had to be serious. Had he lost big in the recent market turmoil? Even if she didn't trade stocks, the takeover of Hengyu had made headlines, and that was once her in-law's company. As much as possible, Fu Hang replied coolly. Wait for me. I'm heading home right now. Weiyang hung up solemnly. She really was in Hansung. Her flight landed at 4 that afternoon. She had been avoiding Fu Hang. Shen Qingluan's graceful departure had shaken her deeply. Maybe loving someone meant letting go. Sometimes, silence from one spared pain for all three. There's a kind of love called letting go. Knowing you care for me is enough. Maybe not meeting again is the best kind of reunion. But after that call, she couldn't sit still. She raced back home, somewhere she hadn't returned to in a long time. Dad, I need money. That was the first thing she said as she stormed through the door. Your chain hit a funding crunch? Li Bingyao raised a brow. He'd been closely monitoring Ganlu since he'd sent over his own team to help. Things are going great, nearly 30 stores, steady growth. There were 80 million on the books. It couldn't be that. Was it the new entertainment company? No, that one had $1 billion in cash and barely any projects. No, it's for Fu Hang. She bit her lip, deciding not to hide it. Fu Hang. Li Bingyao sat up straight. That name had been lingering in his mind. He'd investigated, but found little. Still, he knew this young man had brains, guts, power, and connections. After all, he dropped 200 million on his divorced daughter without a word. All the paperwork had been clean. The cash was real. So this man had gifted his daughter 2 entire companies. He needs money. How much? Li Bingyao's voice was calm, but heavy. He knew this wasn't going to be a small number. As much as possible. She met his eyes directly. He fell silent, sipping his tea, deep in thought. She didn't interrupt. You know the company's situation. Dad, let me finish. Your brother's shares are off limits. He set a cup down, but I'll mortgage mine and yours. We can probably raise 300 million. Dad, Li Weiyang was stunned. She had only expected maybe a few tens of millions. But he was putting everything on the line. The last time, I was stubborn and interfered with your choices. I almost ruined you, Li Bingyao said with a soft smile. But this time, I'll be stubborn with you. Dad, Li Weiyang's eyes welled up as she threw herself into his arms. He held her tightly, his gaze turning distant. He'd built everything from scratch, an empire forged with grit. But times had changed, and he couldn't keep up. His son, timid and spineless, had become a doormat after marriage. Useless. A year ago, he'd met the heir to Hung Yu and saw a way out. He'd pushed for the marriage, and at the time, his daughter hadn't objected. Wang Haitao had seemed perfect in every way. He thought he was giving her the best, but he forgot the most brutal rule of nature, survival of the fittest. The Wang family were pure capitalists. No love, no loyalty, no bonds. Only profit. They hadn't lifted him up, they'd tried to devour him. Maybe while he lived, his company would still bear the Li name. But afterward, his son was weak, and his daughter had married into the enemy. He refused, and the Wangs bared their fangs. He fought to hold on, never telling his daughter the whole truth. But his daughter-in-law eventually exploded, dragging everything into the open. His daughter left the Wang family. That guilt had haunted him. But somehow she found Fu Hang. During his long silence earlier, he had come to a decision. He was old. His company was fading. His son? Let him live in comfort. But his daughter, Ganlu and Weiyang Entertainment were thriving. Soon they'd outpace him anyway. So why not go all in? If it worked, she'd be tied to Fu Hang forever. And he could see she truly loved him this time. If it failed, well, Fu Hang already gave her more than the Li family ever had. And Hung Yu? The company he once feared, once bowed to, taken over in mere days. The Wangs? Crushed overnight. Suddenly, it all felt lighter. In this life, what was he really fighting for? Fu Hang got the call 2 hours later. I can raise 300 million. You'll have it by tomorrow morning. No need to transfer it to me. Just put it in your account, enable overseas investment, and send me your credentials. Fu Hang grinned. 300 million? Definitely went all in. 94. 49%. No joke. What? Overseas account? What for? To make money, Fu Hang said, then hung up laughing. He was lying beside Qin Yuchu, who gave him a suspicious look as he turned to her with a sly grin. It's only fair to return the favor. Get your 27% ready for leverage. We're going big. He kissed her forehead. System, my girl's out here conquering the world for me. Can't you toss her a little pocket change? Inside a high-security building, the Great Wall drill had ended, but the action hadn't. The data from the last 2 weeks was massive. I'm starting to regret it, muttered an old man beside Professor Li. We should have lent him more when he asked about Hung Yu, a smiling woman said, clicking her tongue. Who knew Wang Tai-jun would fold so fast? Another sighed, tossing his report aside. Oh, shut it. This haul alone is enough to push us up 2 levels. Let's not get greedy in our old age. Professor Li rolled his eyes, but he couldn't hide his glee. That brat Fu Hang, a true monster. It was like he didn't play the game. He rewrote it, luring in foreign investors, then trapping them and bleeding them out to pay for his financial war. Genius. Qin was lucky to be in his orbit. Professor, something's happening in the overseas markets, an analyst ran over. Though the drill had ended, surveillance had not. They had to stay alert in case those burned players returned for revenge. Which ones? Professor Li asked, eyes narrowing. It's those 2. They're coming back? Prep groups 3 and 5 for engagement. His eyes lit up. He'd been itching for another round. No, Weichi. Someone's counterattacking them. Professor Lee froze, then burst into a grin that stretched into every wrinkle. Groups 1 and 2. Keep analyzing. Groups 3, 5, 6, 9, ready for sniper ops. Group 8. Draft a strategic response and apply for reserve fund access. Experts with me. He whirled around, coat billowing as he sprinted out, a group of fired-up seniors racing behind him. Time to kick a few dogs while they were down. Meanwhile, Li Bingyao sat nervously at his desk, watching the account tied to his daughter. He thought he was lending Fu Hang money for cash flow. Now he realized it wasn't a loan. It was ammo, and Fu Hang hadn't even touched it yet. Just let it sit in her name. This wasn't about money anymore. It was war. Suddenly, his phone rang. Professor Lee? Which Professor Lee? Hansung University's Professor Lee? Li Bingyao was waiting personally downstairs at his company. Professor Lee, that titan of the financial world whom he had previously only ever seen on television, a man usually impossible to get an audience with, had actually called him personally, saying he wanted to visit his company. Li Bingyao was overwhelmed and anxious. Why would such a big shot suddenly come to his company? Was it because of his foreign investments? In an earlier call, Professor Lee had subtly asked if he'd mortgaged company shares to enter the overseas financial market. He'd also asked if Li Bingyao was personally managing the account. Li Bingyao was no newcomer to the business world. Professor Lee's line of questioning was highly problematic. To put it more seriously, his inquiries bordered on suspicion of capital flight. After hanging up, Li Bingyao had instructed his assistant to quickly tidy up and prepare for an inspection, while he himself had gone downstairs early to wait. Professor Lee had said he'd be there right away. And indeed, he didn't have to wait long. Professor Lee arrived even earlier than expected. But were they really here for a visit? Not an arrest. A full 5 buses pulled up in a long line in front of his company. All sorts of people disembarked, and he even spotted a few long trench coats. President Lee? Professor Lee was the first off the bus. Seeing the middle-aged man at the entrance, he beamed. Yes, I'm Li Bingyao. Professor Lee, your esteemed presence. Ah, no need for formalities. Let's go to your conference room. Professor Lee cordially took Li Bingyao's arm. These people are. Li Bingyao looked back, startled and suspicious, feeling a bit intimidated by the dense crowd. He recognized a few individuals whose status and position were in no way inferior to Professor Lee's. The tour group? Let's go. Professor Lee glanced back, then eagerly led the way. Li Bingyao didn't dare act presumptuously and quickly showed them in. A tour group? What kind of tour group was this? Even a financial summit wouldn't gather such a complete lineup, would it? Inside the elevator, Professor Lee's gaze fell on the company logos on the button panel. Besides a logo for Li Tianming's company, 2 other company names were prominently displayed in eye-catching fonts: Sweet Dew Milk Tea and Weiyang Entertainment. This Weiyang Entertainment, is that the one your daughter recently established? Professor Lee frowned. My young daughter enjoys trying new things. It's just for fun, Li Bingyao hurriedly explained. Frivolous pursuits. Professor Lee's expression suddenly changed, his tone extremely disapproving. Li Bingyao instantly broke out in a cold sweat. However, the subsequent developments left Li Bingyao even more bewildered. The company employees who were originally on standby for the visit were all happily put on paid leave. The large conference room in the office building, usually used for annual meetings, was directly requisitioned and packed to the brim with people. And the real-time transaction information from his daughter's overseas account was projected onto a large screen. Most crucially, everyone in the entire company, except for Li Bingyao himself, was cleared out, including his personal assistant. The elevator entrances, stairwells, and fire exits in the office building were all sealed off, with tall, imposing figures in long trench coats standing guard on either side, their faces grim and cold. What was going on? Li Bingyao was panicking. After that, he was taken aside and made to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Only then did he realize all this commotion, this huge setup, was just to observe how that kid, Fu Hang, operated overseas. At that moment, his mind suddenly raced with thoughts about the 300 million in assets in the account. Professor Lee, in truth, felt quite helpless about the situation too. For overseas operations, they couldn't monitor them in real time via back-end systems. And if they couldn't see the back-end, then viewing the account from a first-person perspective was naturally the optimal solution. Of course, he could have just summoned Li Bingyao or directly asked him to hand over the account. But who would issue such an order? Was he looking for trouble? The young man, Fu Hang, had effectively given them half a month of masterclasses, and now they were to turn around and strong-arm his father-in-law? If this caused any friction, who would they answer to? So, the large contingent had traveled a great distance and come directly to Li Bingyao's headquarters. "We'll just watch. Really, just watch," was the unspoken justification. Unlike his restraint and caution in the domestic financial market, would that maverick Fu Hang completely let loose once overseas? Especially this time, as he was striking out in anger, with the aura of anyone who offends our celestial dynasty will be punished, no matter how far. And, just as Professor Li had predicted, the kid showed no intention of testing the waters. Right from the start, he targeted several financial protocol loopholes that had already been exposed domestically. With a few swift, decisive opening moves, he directly stunned the opposition. "Should we follow? Their rhythm is clearly disrupted," an old man exclaimed, rubbing his hands and stamping his foot in excitement. "Not yet, not yet." Professor Li's eyes were sharp, fixed intently on the large screen, as serious as if he were a student seeing a multimedia presentation for the first time during his college entrance exam year. Beside him, countless analysts wearing headsets were hunched over, rapidly taking notes. In another part of the building, a large contingent of personnel was on standby, ready to mobilize a massive force and charge towards foreign shores at a moment's notice. Instructions came from the compound. Wait for an opportune moment. Do not act rashly. If Fu Hang was just letting off steam, they were not to participate to avoid escalating the situation. But if a real opportunity arose, they were to press the advantage and launch an offensive. He's made a move. Other sectors are moving too. An analyst, staring at a tablet in his hand, pressed his earpiece. "Which sectors?" Professor Li asked urgently. "Funds, futures, gold, crude oil, agricultural products." The analyst stared at his computer, his voice trembling. "A full-scale offensive." Professor Li was so shocked he shot up from his chair. "Old Li, do we follow?" a middle-aged woman asked, her eyes gleaming with a predatory light. "Not yet." Professor Li narrowed his eyes, trying hard to calm his racing thoughts. The major venture capital firms were all interconnected. They wouldn't just stand by and do nothing. Since Fu Hang dared to launch a full-scale offensive, he must have a backup plan. Qin Yuchu sat in her office, her gaze distant. Before, she had lacked the energy to pay attention to the overseas market. But now, watching intently, she truly realized just how terrifying this man, who had promised to merely support her, actually was. Then, she actually abandoned any thought of participating, instead grabbing a notebook and beginning to write frantically. He was giving her a lesson. The major upheaval in the financial markets quickly drew attention from all sides. And just as Professor Li had guessed, the major interconnected venture capital firms, regardless of their motives, were soon drawn into the fray. On the third day, Professor Li waved his hand decisively and issued the attack order. Groups 3 and 5 target the stock market. Group 6 hit the funds. Groups 7 and 8 attack the futures. His voice was chillingly cold. "How should we attack?" The analyst responsible for relaying messages paused, awaiting more detailed instructions. "How else? Just follow his lead. Attack wherever he attacks. If he retreats, you pull back too." The middle-aged woman couldn't help but interject. The analyst glanced hesitantly at Professor Li, saw him give an almost imperceptible nod, and hurriedly began to issue the commands. The next moment, the charge was sounded. A veritable bloodbath began to unfold in the overseas financial markets. That very afternoon, whether due to the keen instincts of capital or an information leak, numerous domestic capitalists and consortiums scrambled to raise funds and join the siege and raid. However, these investors soon discovered that the opponent's counterattack was surprisingly fierce. Sneaking into the market, one misstep could lead to complete ruin, just like those two venture capital firms that had tried to poach a quick profit domestically a few days prior and ended up losing everything. Consequently, guided by the analyses of top-tier strategists, they uncovered a crucial insight. There was a conductor. The hidden baton orchestrating from behind the scenes was as precise as laser guidance. An interesting scene unfolded. The aggressors in the overseas financial markets suddenly synchronized their movements. Under that invisible baton, a pack of ravenous capital moved in perfect lockstep, obeying every command, striking wherever directed. Moreover, they struck and retreated instantly, with no one lingering for a prolonged fight. This laser guidance had instantly transformed into a sniper's scope. Have you ever seen a sniper rifle with a .285 cm caliber? This expedition lasted a full 9 days. It wasn't until the Ministry of Foreign Affairs could no longer withstand the pressure that the central leadership, with a certain air of satisfaction over the campaign's success, finally issued the directive: sound a retreat and return home. When Professor Lee received the call, he still seemed unfulfilled, as if wanting more. It was so damn satisfying. After being suppressed and forced onto the defensive for so many years, this single offensive was enough to set their adversary's economy back a decade. He believed that for the next 20 years, those venture capitalists wouldn't even dare to glance in their direction. All right, give me the phone. Remind him it's time to call it quits. Professor Lee sighed, a note of resignation in his voice. He, too, understood that going too far was as bad as not going far enough. He already stopped yesterday, the analyst said after a moment's hesitation, deciding to share the information. What? Professor Lee was stunned. Truth be told, as the battle wore on, Professor Lee had gotten into the zone. The momentum of a winning streak felt incredible, and he and the expert team had been engrossed in discussing offensive strategies, completely disregarding Fu Hang's tempo. By that stage, it was practically a harvest to slaughter. No matter how they proceeded, the outcome would remain unchanged. He stopped yesterday, the analyst emphasized again. Professor Lee remained dumbfounded for a long while. Then, he threw his head back and laughed heartily, and the experts beside him also broke into gratified smiles. This young man, he could perhaps ensure the nation's peace for 100 years. He wasn't arrogant despite his talent, nor conceited in victory. He knew his limits and understood when to advance and when to retreat. Most impressively, his foresight and grasp of the bigger picture had led him to withdraw even before they had considered it. The main force swiftly withdrew, leaving only Li Bingyao and his daughter, Li Weiyang, standing somewhat apart. Li Weiyang had been summoned back by Li Bingyao the next day. Owing to her special status, she had witnessed the entirety of this financial sniper battle during the meetings. Her demeanor was calm, and when she smiled, there was a hint of Shen Qingluan's characteristic gentleness. This was the man she had chosen. Daughter, why don't you ask Fu Hang how we should pay the commission? Li Bingyao stammered, his voice trembling as he gazed at the staggering figures on the account. A man who had navigated the cutthroat business world his entire life was at a loss for words. Li Weiyang, upon hearing him, calmly took out her phone and showed the screen to her father. On it was a text message with a single, simple sentence. All done. Go ahead and spend it. Don't work yourself too hard. Li Bingyao stared blankly at the phone screen, then turned to look at the outrageous figures on the large monitor, then turned back to reread the message on the phone, trying to process its meaning. Daughter, tell Dad the truth. Are you being kept by him? Meanwhile, Professor Lee, feeling refreshed and invigorated, was leaving on a bus. Old Lee, an elderly man from the front row, turned around and looked earnestly at Professor Lee. You mentioned last time that Hanqing University School of Finance still has some vacant positions, right? Professor Lee suddenly smiled. Hanqing University School of Finance always welcomes everyone for academic exchanges. If time permits, you're also welcome to come and lecture, Professor Lee said. Everyone was delighted to hear this, and a few even began to mentally rearrange their schedules for the near future. But I have to make one thing clear, Professor Lee said smugly, looking quite pleased with himself. As for Yuanbo trading, I don't have the final say. Getting even a part-time consultancy, there would be cashing in a big favor from that student of mine. For a moment, the bus was filled with playful grumbling. It had been too short, far too short. Although their gains from this operation were substantial enough to keep them busy analyzing for a while, who wouldn't be tempted by a chance to observe a place like Yuanbo trading up close for an extended period? Old Lee, you said that kid isn't very old, right? A middle-aged woman poked her head out from behind Professor Lee. Not yet 30. Professor Lee was genuinely overcome with emotion. He had always believed geniuses existed in this world, like himself or his student Qin Yuchu. But his definition of a genius was someone with talent in certain areas that surpassed conventional understanding, talent that still needed nurturing. Now, however, he finally understood. There was another kind of person in this world, someone who far exceeded the category of genius. Such a person could only be described as a phenom, because they had already transcended the conventional definition of what it meant to be human. I actually have a niece, a senior at Jingxing University this year. She's very pretty, intelligent, and quick-witted. You've met little Qin, haven't you? My student, Professor Lee interrupted. Little Qin? Qin Yuchu. The middle-aged woman paused, surprised. Yes. If you're confident your niece can hold her own against little Qin, then by all means, bring her along. The middle-aged woman said no more. On the other side of the ocean, in a dimly lit, secret room, a white-haired man with an aquiline nose was slamming his fist on the table, furiously venting his rage. Bastards! This is outrageous. Utterly outrageous. We've always been the ones plundering others. How dare they come to our turf and snatch our wealth? It's shameless. The black man sitting opposite him remained silent, head bowed, waiting quietly. Where's Catfish? What the hell is Catfish doing? He took $2 billion from us. Why haven't we heard a peep for so long? The aquiline-nosed man's palm was red, but he felt no pain. They had suffered a devastating loss this time. In their own area of expertise, they had been so thoroughly routed and humiliated by those backward Easterners, and the situation had only de-escalated after they practically begged for mercy through diplomatic channels. This was an absolute, monumental disgrace. Catfish is MIA. What? Mia. The aquiline-nosed man's expression went slack for a moment, his thoughts slowly refocusing. He's probably lying low somewhere, biding his time. You know Catfish. He doesn't make a move unless he's certain, but once he does. I don't want him biding his time. Tell him to make a big splash right now. The messier, the better. The aquiline-nosed man slammed his fist on the desk. He wanted revenge. More importantly, the losses this time were too severe. He needed to recoup them quickly, and if that place was the East, the very ones who had just robbed them, all the better. The Catfish, it won't follow our commands. Then contact Apocalypse. Apocalypse. There's been an incident. The black man's head sank even lower. The hook-nosed man's waving arm suddenly froze. He stared at the black man, aghast. Just 4 hours ago, Apocalypse HQ exploded. It was razed to the ground. What? Such critical news. And you're only telling me now? Hook-nose flared up. I reported it earlier, but... The black man, baring his pale teeth, was speechless. I reported it 3 times, but you weren't listening, were you? You were too busy staring at the financial markets and slamming your fist on the table. What exactly happened? Hooknose finally calmed down. According to the latest intelligence, Catfish 4 went out of control. It escaped the incubation chamber, killed all the research personnel, and destroyed all the research data. The black man licked his lips and reported through gritted teeth. 4? When did they start researching a 4? Damn it. Those liars. The black man didn't dare to respond. So where's 4 now? Its whereabouts are unknown. No one was left alive at Apocalypse HQ. Wait, let me get this straight. For lost control, killed everyone at the Research Institute, and destroyed the data. Does that mean the Apocalypse project is gone? Yes. Due to its special nature, the initial requirement was that no data backups could be stored externally. And now, for his missing? The black man nodded. Are you telling me that the astronomically expensive Apocalypse project is finished, and an out-of-control Catfish is lost? It could turn up anywhere in our country, and the crucial part is we have no information on it. The black man's neck was stiff, his chin almost touching his chest. No, wait. Not only do we lack data on 4, but we don't have data on 3 either. No. Apocalypse sent data to Ghost Shadow. The money was delivered by Ghost Shadow. Where's Ghost Shadow? Hooknose finally remembered he'd sent 2 teams over there. Ghost Shadow. We've lost contact with them too. Hooknose's eyes glazed over for a moment, as if he'd heard a ridiculous joke. However, not long ago, they found Loki's body at the border. Sniper rifle. It was a redhead who received the Apocalypse data. Am I to understand from what you're saying that not only do we not recognize 4, we don't even recognize 3? The only person who had seen 3's data was sniped at the border. So they hadn't even made contact with 3 yet? Roughly. That's the gist of it. Fuck. Hooknose grabbed the keyboard in front of him and smashed it repeatedly against the computer monitor. The black man lowered his head, mentally adding computers, plus 3, to this month's list of consumable supplies. These past few days, Fu Heng had been feeling rather frustrated. He'd realized he was definitely being watched. The most annoying part? It was well-intentioned surveillance. He understood that the system had probably made some excessively large moves in the financial market. These moves had attracted the attention of certain people. So, they were afraid that he, a simp who had once served the country and shed blood for it, will be targeted by those with ill intentions. Hence, the tight protection. This made him, the simp, very uncomfortable. He was a man with important missions, after all, and it would be incredibly awkward if his missions were to be observed. Imagine being a simp, and your simping gets live-streamed? Instant social death, wouldn't you say? Especially after yesterday's settlement, which made him even more agitated. Yanan was still exploiting some bug, her affection points hovering steadily between 45% and 55%. Shen Qingluan's continued to fall, dropping about 0.2% a day. It was now only at 23%. The key was Li Weiyang, the client from whom he planned to get his first cash back. After taking her and her entire family on a major acquisition spree, her affection points had only risen by a mere 0.1%, staring at the 95.59% affection rating. Fu Hang felt a sense of unreality. Aren't you supposed to be emotional? Aren't you easily moved? Never mind starting an entertainment company for you before. This time, I practically handed your family nearly $2 billion, and you only go up by 0.1%. Where's your conscience? Acquired money isn't real money, is that it? The blood, sweat, and tears of people overseas isn't worth anything, right? So, while brushing his teeth this morning, Fu Hang had an epiphany. Money couldn't buy love. You couldn't just throw cash at it to reach 100%. There had to be a threshold. Once the amount of money exceeded a certain sum, it became difficult to sway a person's emotions, especially love. Therefore, the remaining 41%, he'd have to earn it himself. Damn system, utterly useless. He got dressed, went downstairs, and walked straight to the newly opened convenience store in the residential complex. Hello, what can I get for you? The middle-aged woman behind the counter was unusually enthusiastic. Give me a driver's license, Fu Hang said, staring straight at her. The woman fell silent. Coming to the neighborhood store first thing in the morning to buy a driver's license? Retaking the test is too much trouble, and it'd waste your people's time, wouldn't it? I'll go buy a car first. Once you've got it sorted, just have someone bring it over to me. You should know where I am, right? Fu Hang raised an eyebrow and pointed to a pack of cigarettes under the counter. The woman instinctively took out the cigarettes. Fu Hang scanned the QR code to pay 25 yuan. So, did you hear me? The woman remained stunned in place, as if muttering to herself. I'll report it up. A sigh echoed in the woman's earpiece. Fu Hang received the driver's license, delivered by an errand runner, at the 4S dealership. Then, he drove his newly purchased BSJKY on the highway. He was going to intercept Li Weiyang. Just try and hide from me now. In Hangzhou by Westlake, inside a soon-to-be-renovated Ganlu milk tea shop, Fu Hang sat with his legs crossed, examining the antique-style decor. Say what you will, Li Weiyang really had a knack for the milk tea business. She'd even opened a branch in Hangzhou, right beneath the pagoda. When he first heard this news from Xia Xiaofeng, he'd been genuinely shocked. Her expansion speed far exceeded his imagination. So he'd gifted this store a very fitting theme song, Dance of Fleeting Light. Today was the shooting day for the Dance of Fleeting Light themed music video. Li Weiyang would be there to personally oversee it. Of course, Xia Xiaofeng had provided this intel too. Money can't move you, huh? What about a person? I, a max-level grandmaster, will throw myself right in your face. Let's see you dodge that. Boss, this is the Westlake branch. The decor is entirely according to your specifications, Xia Xiaofeng said, fawning beside him. Even though he had already been transferred from Ganlu Milk Tea, upon learning that Fu Hang would appear today, he had still come in his capacity as CEO of Weiyang Entertainment to personally supervise the MV shoot. MHM, MHM, MHM. Fu Hang nodded repeatedly. My specifications? Did I ever specify anything? Oh, the project proposal. Damn it, I still haven't even seen the project proposal. Why do I feel like I'm just a delivery boy for rewards? Am I some kind of born delivery saint? But speaking of which, the decor of this shop was indeed different from any milk tea shop he remembered. From a storefront alone, it looked entirely like a traditional tea house. It's got a lot of class, huh? Could it be that the project proposal's aim is to turn Ganlu Milk Tea into the luxury brand of the milk tea world? He'd have to get Li Weiyang to show him the project proposal sometime. He'd passed English level 6 now. He could understand it. These will be 2 separate small private rooms later on. Today, they're temporary dressing rooms for the actors. The actors should be here soon. Bosley might be a bit later. Xia Xiaofeng led Fu Hang to the very back of the tea house and pushed open a room that wasn't completely finished. Fu Hang's eyes lit up. This room wasn't bad, huh? Are you sure this place sells milk tea? He asked as he strolled inside. This area was originally a small hall. For design purposes, we added a partition in the middle, dividing it into 2 small private rooms. Some of the soft furnishings aren't in place yet, though. Weren't you at the entertainment company? Fu Hang turned his head in surprise. Your knowledge of the business is scarily thorough. I arrived last night. Xia Xiaofeng stood at the doorway, not coming in. All right, go get busy. I'll just wait for Weiyang here. Let me know when she arrives. Fu Hang didn't want to continue chatting with Xia Xiaofeng. The more they talked, the more uneasy he felt. Isn't this making it look like I don't care about the 400,000 a day? Are you the sycophant, or am I? This room hasn't been cleaned yet. Please wait a moment. Hearing Fu Hang say he'd wait there, Xia Xiaofeng rolled up his sleeves and went to get a rag. The room, having just had its basic renovations completed, had all its chairs, but the tabletops and chairs were covered in a thick layer of wood dust. Get lost. I'm not helpless, am I? Fu Hang snapped, annoyed. Showing off, are you? Did you manage to win over that receptionist? God knows what you're busy with all day. Xia Xiaofeng tactfully closed the door and left with loud footsteps. Fu Hang rolled his eyes, found a relatively clean chair, wiped it with his sleeve, and plopped down. When Wei Yang arrives, what approach should I use? Play the gentle card? Go for the domineering CEO type? A direct flirtation? Or a strategic retreat? Fu Hang frowned, pondering. Lately, he found this woman increasingly hard to figure out. The door to the room was pushed open, and the crisp sound of high heels approached. Fu Hang didn't look up. Instead, he coolly turned his head to the side, revealing half of his profile and his most satisfactory jawline. His gaze was deep and melancholic, but deep down, he felt a slight regret. If I'd known she'd be here so quickly, I should have lit a cigarette. Why is it so messy? A distinctive voice complained, tinged with impatience. Fu Hang turned his head in surprise. It wasn't Li Wei Yang? Standing before him was an alluring woman with exquisite features and stunningly beautiful makeup. Her outfit, in particular, was fashionable yet elegant. She looked familiar. Where had he seen her before? But before Fu Hang could ponder, the woman actually started taking off her clothes. Fu Hang was stunned. Is this also part of the milk tea shop's services? This really isn't a proper milk tea shop, is it? But I have a mission today. Am I supposed to experience the new shop style right now? Xia Xiaofeng. Oh, Xia Xiaofeng. The next moment, a coat flew towards him. Fu Hang instinctively caught it. Huh. She stopped undressing. She only took off one piece. In this dead of winter, what a letdown. Hurry up and clean this place. What are you spacing out for? The woman frowned, looking at Fu Hang with extreme disgust. Whoa. Fu Hang was taken aback, staring intently at the woman. To be honest, whether it was her looks, demeanor, features, or figure, this woman was top-notch. Especially after taking off her coat. Her figure was well-proportioned and curvaceous. So, Fu Hang waited for a surprise from his damn system. Then, a full 10 seconds passed. The system gave no notification. Confirmation complete. This wasn't a client. What's going on? How did it get so filthy? This won't do. Hey, you there. What are you gawking at? Hurry up and clean. An effeminate voice chimed in again. Fu Hang turned his head, his eyes twitching. Who is this weirdo? Wearing a see-through outfit in this cold weather? Wouldn't it be better to cover your belly button with that fur piece from your neck? I'm talking to you. Hurry up and wipe a chair clean so our Qian can sit down. This man's tone was even more arrogant, standing beside the woman with a hand on his hip, fingers posed delicately. Oh, Fu Hang nodded, turned, and carefully wiped the chair clean with the coat in his hand. You. The man instantly flew into a rage. What do you think you're doing? Do you know how much this coat costs? The man trembled with anger. Nope. Fu Hang shook his head emphatically, tossed the coat onto the dusty table, and plopped down on the newly cleaned chair. You. Do I know you? The man suddenly paused, a hint of surprise in his eyes. Are you a singer from Wei Yang Entertainment? The one who sang Heart Ripped Apart? The man suddenly sneered. The woman called Qian, standing nearby, flickered her eyes, but her expression remained frosty. Fu Hang raised an eyebrow. So now I'm a singer? Huh. Young man, do you really not know why you only get to sing it once? Your singing is decent, I'll give you that, but with your lack of perceptiveness, you deserve to be shelved for life. You've offended Qian today, so you can forget about ever making a name for yourself in this industry. The man stood with hands on hips, looking at Fu Hang with a cold, sidelong glance. Sorry, you're too late. I no longer need this kind of lowbrow, face-slapping drama for emotional validation. So, please leave. Fu Hang looked at them seriously. He remembered who this Qian was. Likely a singer, quite famous too, with some title like For Junior Divas or something. She was probably the actress for today's music video shoot. Didn't they say our company's songs weren't for outsiders? Why hire an external singer? Surely Xia Xiaofeng didn't poach her too? Too late? What do you mean? Do your words represent your company? The man didn't understand the latter part of Fu Hang's statement, and his anger flared up even more. Let me tell you, if Wei Yang Entertainment is going to have this kind of attitude, then our Qian is really leaving. Then you can leave now. A cold voice suddenly came from outside the door. Fu Hang raised an eyebrow, a smile appearing on his face. Bosley had arrived. The man turned in surprise. only to see a woman with an icy expression standing at the door. Her looks and aura were a couple of notches above Qianqian's. He was momentarily unsure how to react. He could tell at a glance that this woman, with an imposing presence, was dressed head to toe in limited edition items that probably cost enough to buy an apartment. Sister Tiandai, this is... Qianqian was also intimidated by this presence, especially since she recognized Fong Tiandai, a top agent she had worked with many times, who had just moved from Huana Entertainment to Weiyang Entertainment. Fong Tiandai kept her head down as if she hadn't heard the question, her gaze fixed downwards, calm and composed. Those in the entertainment circle knew exactly when to speak and what to say. Fong Tiandai's demeanor made the two people inside feel a jolt of unease. This is our boss, Boss Li of Sweet Dew Milk Tea, Li Weiyang. Xia Xiaofeng peeked his head in and quietly made the introduction. The man's eyes widened dramatically. Boss Xia, your boss? Boss Li of Sweet Dew Milk Tea, Li Weiyang? That's a lot of information to process. Weiyang Entertainment? Li Weiyang? So, is this the financial backer for this project? Or are there two of them? Boss Li, it's a misunderstanding. Li Weiyang didn't speak but took half a step back. An extremely burly figure stepped into the man's line of sight. Fu Heng instantly grinned. This guy? Blocking Li Weiyang was none other than the honest fellow who had traded $1 million for a job. The man stopped in his tracks. Qianqian's face also turned very ugly. A bodyguard stepping forward. Were they really going to be kicked out? Boss Li, surely it doesn't have to come to this. I am now formally informing you that our contract is terminated, effective immediately. In the future, neither Sweet Dew Milk Tea nor Weiyang Entertainment will engage in any form of cooperation with you. You may leave. As for the breach of contract penalty, our legal team will contact you shortly. Li Weiyang's voice remained icy. Qianqian was dumbfounded. Was it really necessary? Just because of a few words? She was a pop princess, for crying out loud. And Weiyang Entertainment had only been established for a few days, right? Even a seasoned pro in the industry was stunned. Qianqian couldn't see it, but he was crystal clear about the true value of the Sweet Dew Milk Tea theme song. For this track, Dancing Lights, he'd almost put Fong Tiandai on a pedestal. If it weren't for their years of friendship, Fong Tiandai might not even have agreed. He'd initially thought she was just some struggling minor singer, but who knew she was actually the big boss's privately kept treasure? No wonder she'd only appeared on camera once. He'd assumed she hadn't pleased the higher-ups and was being shelved. Turns out, she was being kept in a gilded cage by the female capitalist. How can anyone make sense of this? Aren't you a successful entrepreneur? Profits before everything, right? How could you lose your head over some pretty boy? The two of them stood frozen, but the honest bruiser moved. One in each hand, he acted without a shred of hesitation. I don't care what kind of riffraff you are. If the boss hadn't said anything about legs today, I'd have definitely left each of you with one less. After that day, he had even started studying traditional Chinese bone setting, all to avenge his past humiliation one day. As he was hauling them out, he actually paused for a moment. But alas, the boss didn't give a word. It looked like his specialty, the leg-breaking blow, would have to wait for another time. I'm sorry, it was my oversight. Fong Tiandai said hurriedly as she followed Li Weiyang into the room, not waiting for Xia Xiaofeng to speak. At this moment, she had to take the blame. Fu Heng said nothing, merely glancing at her casually. Here's the thing, Xia Xiaofeng chimed in, not shirking responsibility either. The company has just been established, and we don't have enough artists in reserve. It's currently difficult to match the speed at which Sweet Dew Milk Tea needs its theme song. Lei Lu, Xiao Qi, and the others have already sung many songs. So, I asked Sister Fong to find some singers with a higher profile. You don't have to do this. Fu Heng, however, ignored both of them and stepped in front of Li Weiyang. It had been a while since they last met. She had lost some weight, but the aura of a strong, capable woman around her had only intensified. You won't suffer even the slightest grievance again. I decree it. Li Weiyang looked up stubbornly. Fu Heng's eyes flickered. Damn, this woman was really something else. Last time, too, she hadn't hesitated to slap Shen Qingluan across the face. That person is gone. What about today's shoot? Is there a backup singer? Fu Heng turned to Fong Tiandai. We do have a backup, but she's a newcomer. Fong Tiandai and Xia Xiaofeng simultaneously turned their heads to meticulously examine the wood carving patterns on the wall. That stroke isn't quite straight. We'll have a craftsman fix it later. If we call someone now, will they make it in time? Fu Heng wasn't concerned about whether it was a newcomer or not. With the songs he had, anyone could perform them well. She's right outside. I brought her here to learn today. Fang Tiandai's eyes lit up. Her then, you two go ahead and get busy. President Li and I have something to discuss. Fu Hang waved his hand dismissively. The two of them tactfully made a swift exit. Xia Xiaofeng closed the door behind him and turned to see the honest bruiser returning after escorting the troublemakers out. The guy stood at the door like a ramrod-straight javelin. Xia Xiaofeng looked up at him, and the bruiser looked down at Xia Xiaofeng. Xia Xiaofeng said nothing, just stared at him. The big guy, ever so earnest, met the CEO's gaze steadily. You should leave now. Xia Xiaofeng took a deep breath and reminded him in a low voice. The bruiser was first startled, then confused, then understanding dawned, followed by fear. He suddenly remembered that day at the milk tea shop entrance. Holy crap, when the boss is with a woman, you're supposed to stay far away, right? The bruiser turned and left, his footsteps thundering. Xia Xiaofeng nodded slightly. This guy had potential. I could consider making him a team leader here. As the footsteps faded away outside, a roguish smile played on Fu Hang's lips. The moment the door closed, Li Weiyang's domineering CEO aura instantly deflated. She even subconsciously took a step back. Why are you avoiding me? Fu Hang pressed forward, taking a larger step than Li Weiyang's retreat, closing the distance between them in an instant. I'm not. Li Weiyang turned her head away, her right hand unnaturally clutching her left thumb. Then why couldn't I find you? Fu Hang took another small step forward, tilting his head slightly in the direction she had turned. Work. So many branches. You're the president, not the general manager. Do you really need to personally oversee the theme song for a new store? A smile touched Fu Hang's lips, but his voice dropped lower and lower, his breath controlled from below his diaphragm, resonating fully from his chest. It made his voice sound like a subwoofer with reverb. I was worried they wouldn't do a good job. Li Weiyang bit her lip and retreated another step, only to find her back against the wall. There was nowhere left to run. Tell me the truth. Fu Hang didn't yield an inch, pressing closer. This step was even larger than the last. Now, he was practically flush against her. I don't want to make things difficult for you. Li Weiyang suddenly faced him, looking straight into Fu Hang's eyes. Her turn brought their noses almost touching. Eye to eye, nose to nose, the atmosphere grew increasingly intimate. In the half-cool, half-warm autumn, snuggled close by your side, quietly watching the dancing lights, those crimson leaves in the wind, stirring endless tenderness in my heart. A heartfelt hum drifted from the next room. It seemed the backup singer had been placed next door to prepare and was now diligently practicing. I don't want to be the other woman. Seeing Fu Hang remain silent, Li Weiyang stared at him stubbornly, though her voice held a hint of timidity. Half drunk, half awake, holding back 1,000 smiling glances, let me be like snow drifting in the clouds, with icy purity, gently kissing your face, bringing waves upon waves of lingering affection. The singing from next door carried a tender longing, like an echo lingering in the rafters, seeping through the wall from another space, yet narrating the tender affections of this world. Fu Hang's lips relaxed, the roguish smile vanished, and his eyes softened with immense tenderness. Li Weiyang was really dropping a bombshell, huh? Doesn't want to be the other woman? Then what does she want to be? Don't tell me she, like Shen Qingluan, wants to marry me? This was a hard line to respond to. Fu Hang gently pressed his forehead forward, his nose lightly brushing against Li Weiyang's. Their warm breaths mingled, and he could clearly feel her body tremble. Fu Hang understood. At this moment, any words would be wrong. He used emotion as an excuse to press his body forward, his chest meeting hers. Leave behind so much love in the mortal world, face 1,000 changes in this fleeting life, do joyous things with your beloved. Don't ask if it's tribulation or fate. The song from next door reached its chorus. With a rise in pitch, the girl's voice became even more piercing. Fu Hang silently gave her a thumbs up in his mind. This girl definitely deserved a raise. No, not just a raise. She needed to be heavily promoted in the future. What a divine assist. Fu Hang tilted his head slightly, shifting their touching noses apart, then gently pecked forward with his lips. Li Weiyang shuddered again, looking at Fu Hang with wide, startled eyes, yet there wasn't a trace of fear in them. Fu Hang's lips touched hers fleetingly. Then he shifted his head and quickly pecked her again from a different angle. Li Weiyang closed her eyes, her breathing becoming very rapid. Fu Hang took the chance to lick his lips, moistening them. But he didn't kiss her further. He just hovered there, his lips a breath away from hers, just under her nose. The chorus's repeating lines echoed. Love lingers on this mortal ground. Life shifts, 1,000 changes round. With your lover, joy embrace, ask not if it's doom or grace. The singer in the next room raised her volume slightly. This time, she had clearly found her groove, her emotions swelling with richness. The long, drawn-out note, half-sung, half-chanted, seemed to flip a switch within Li Weiyang. She lunged forward, her hands, which had been protectively held in front of her, spread open and instinctively wrapped around Fu Hang's neck. With your lover, joy embrace, ask not if it's doom or grace. The passionate kiss, interrupted in the car, resumed, growing even hotter and more frantic. Back then, Fu Hang hadn't yet mastered the art of cosmic profundity. Armed with Confucian verbal barbs and Taoist universe-in-sleeve maneuvers, Fu Hang's fighting spirit blazed. A smirk played on his lips, and numbers flashed in his eyes. 4, 41, 4, 44, 39. Like willow strands, like the spring's soft sigh. With you, I'll watch the spring go by. Let yourself in misty waves reside. Let all your heart's wild passion ride. Wrapped in a spring rain, soft and wide. Time to show his real skills. Fu Hang's confidence soared. Surely not every woman was a Qin Yuchu, right? As the saying goes, a single glint of cold light arrives first. Boom! The wall collapsed. Fu Hang's face was a mask of bewilderment. Has my power really reached such a profound level? But I haven't even started. My belt's only half undone. However, what stunned him wasn't just the rising dust, but also what hovered before his eyes, so close, delicate, tender, fair, supple. Feet. Fu Hang's eyes twitched. Feet could look like this. The color, contour, shape, vibrancy, texture. It all made Fu Hang strangely hungry. You get up first. A low moan came from beneath him. Fu Hang froze. Right? Li Weiyang was under him. So whose feet were these? Stunned, Fu Hang's gaze traveled up from the feet. And then, he saw a T. Fu Hang gulped. Further up, a blur of mosaic. No, Weiqi. This part didn't need censoring, right? You'd barely notice it if you weren't looking. But what was noteworthy was that beyond that flat expanse, there was a terrified face. The face itself was quite pretty, a well-shaped nose and slender eyes, though her features were currently contorted in terror. Holy crap, who is this? Fu Hang struggled to get up, but the next moment, his movement froze halfway. System detection, current target, Zhuge Yun. Reject. Fu Hang practically roared. Damn it, I was all revved up, ready to go spear like a dragon. And you not only break my composure, but also break my wall. And if that wasn't enough, a client in a Mercedes thong falls from the sky. Fu Hang leaped up from the floor, staring in horror at the young woman on the ground, legs in the air, her feet wiggling, but desperately holding back any sound. Li Weiyang finally noticed someone else was there and hastily covered her exposed chest. Little Yun, it's okay. The door opened, then closed again. Fang Tiandai had shown his face at the most inappropriate moment. This kid, Little Yun, I misjudged her. How long has it been? Things have already developed this far? The boss and the boss's boss? How should I treat Little Yun in the future then? The three people in the room had no time for the ill-timed greeting. Fu Hang quickly turned, went back to the damaged private room, opened its door, and fled the tea house as if escaping. Li Weiyang's composure returned quickly. She glanced indifferently at the young woman still lying on her back, legs in the air, and calmly straightened her own clothes. Hurry up and change. The shoot is about to start, she said coldly, then pushed open the door and left. Zhuge Yun was utterly dumbfounded. She was naturally an open-minded, carefree child, always cheerful and loved singing and dancing. An accidental encounter led to her being scouted by Huana's top agent, becoming a candidate singer. In other words, an entertainment industry trainee. She thought this was the start of her starry career. Because Sister Fang had high hopes for her and promised to find the hottest songwriter of the moment, Teacher Qinghe, to tailor-make her debut single and make her an instant hit. Teacher Qinghe was hard to find. Big shots are always mysterious. Fortunately, after much effort, Sister Fang lived up to expectations and finally contacted Teacher Qinghe. And then, Sister Fang changed jobs? This twist came so suddenly it nearly threw her. Was her starry career over just like that? Luckily, Sister Fang was very loyal. As soon as she arrived at the new company, she started working on transferring Zhuge Yun's contract. Fortunately, Zhuge Yun was still just a trainee, with no released works, and hadn't even appeared on camera. After Huana symbolically held onto her contract for a few days, they released her for a slightly higher price. Finally, she was back under Sister Fang. Today was her first day at the new company. Sister Fong said she would take her to learn on-site about the new company and new project's operational model, because she would most likely debut with the theme song for Ganlu Milk Tea. Moreover, today's main star was her childhood idol, the talented young diva, Qian Qian. It was the first time she had the honor of seeing her idol in person. She was very excited and wanted to ask for an autograph, but was stopped by that effeminate assistant. But she didn't feel upset. That was the young diva. To see her in person, to be on the same set, to observe her filming and recording up close, to learn from her proximity. This was already a great honor. And then, she saw her idol and that arrogant assistant being carried out like little chicks by a 2-meter-tall man and casually tossed at her feet. In that moment, Zhu Yin felt her entire worldview shatter. This was the young diva, admired by thousands, the focus of all eyes, adored by the masses. How could she be thrown out like trash? However, before she could process her shock, Sister Fong appeared and announced something surreal. She, Zhu Yin, would replace the young diva to sing this song. Could happiness really come so suddenly? She wasn't prepared at all. Trembling with nervousness and apprehension, Zhu Yin followed Sister Fong, completely clueless about what had happened today. But Sister Fong first took her to the restroom and concisely explained what had just occurred. Sister Fong was good at getting to the point, emphasizing mainly one thing. The young diva had offended the financial backers behind the boss with her words and was then fired by the boss. Oh my God, that was the young diva. Fired just for an unintentional verbal offense? Is this the power of capital in the entertainment industry? Holding the costume for the shoot, Zhu Yin walked into the dressing room, still terrified and apprehensive. But being quick-witted since childhood, an idea soon formed in her mind. The boss and the capital behind the boss were discussing things next door. The walls of this private room are wooden. The soundproofing probably isn't good, right? What if I sing a few lines? Catch the boss's attention? At worst, I could at least leave an impression of being hardworking and ambitious, right? So, Zhu Yin started singing. At first, she was a bit worried, but as the song progressed, she gradually found her rhythm. Honestly, she really loved this song, both its style and its artistic conception. Teacher Qinghe truly deserved his reputation as a rare talent of this era. It was a pity, though, Sister Fong said he was a man. She finished singing at once, felt she was in good form, and prepared to sing it again while changing her clothes. Today was a historical drama shoot, so the costumes, makeup, and props were elaborate. Therefore, she had stripped down quite a bit. Who could have known? The wall collapsed. The boss from next door and the capital behind the boss suddenly appeared before her. She wasn't a child anymore. She surfed the internet. From the way they burst through the wall, she understood clearly, plainly, and rather explicitly what had been going on. The young diva was replaced just for a verbal offense. If she, who had witnessed such a scene, wouldn't she be directly blacklisted? Or worse, silenced? Even though Zhu Yin knew she looked disheveled, indecent, and felt cold, she didn't dare move a muscle, only praying silently in her heart. They can't see me. They can't see me. They can't see me. Fu Hang sat on the stone steps opposite the tea house, smoking, his mind still replaying that damn messed-up scene from earlier. Li Weiyang had escaped, bolting straight out the back. The mood had built up to a climax, and then the wall collapsed. Can you believe it? After Li Weiyang fled, Xia Xiaofeng had dragged the manager over to apologize. The renovation work wasn't actually finished. They just put up a temporary set for today's shoot, because the promotional materials needed to be ready before the grand opening. So, the wall of that private room was just propped up, not properly secured. The sole purpose was to create a partition for the actor's temporary dressing room. Who would have thought someone would actually slam into that wall? Fu Hang practically bit through his back teeth. He desperately wanted to burst out cursing. Quality. Quality. What's our company's motto? Quality. But what could he say? Damn it. He was too embarrassed to even bring it up. Waving them away, Fu Hang lowered his head and smoked in frustration. Today's trip was a complete waste. Looking up, he saw the equipment was already set up inside the tea house. And that girl, the one who'd made such a fleeting yet stunning impression, was now in ancient costume, timidly standing before the camera, helping the photographer with positioning. Fu Hang's gaze towards her was filled with resentment, but inexplicably, his thoughts drifted to that pair of delicate, flawless, jade-like feet. Huh? Suddenly, the resentment vanished? No. Is this the corruption and decadence of capital? I used to be an upright man. I'm not this kind of person, okay? Fu Hang's expression as he looked at the girl became complicated. To be fair, she was a girl with very unique looks, especially her aura. She seemed to have a masculine edge to her feminine appearance. No, that's not quite right. It wouldn't even be jarring to say she had an androgynous build. Red beans grow in southern lands. Holy crap. Fu Hang's eyes widened. What the hell am I thinking? Fu Hang violently shook his head, quickly pulled out his phone, and flipped through some photos of Yu. He stared at them for a good 10 minutes before finally calming down. Looking again, the girl seemed to be doing a test vocal for the camera, and pre-recorded accompaniment began to play inside the tea house. The girl danced gracefully, smiling charmingly at the camera. As if to match the music's mood, her eyes held a hint of coquettishness. For a short-haired girl with rather androgynous features, to suddenly flash such a smile was devastatingly captivating. Fu Hang's gaze involuntarily drifted to the embroidered shoes on her feet. Each step a blooming lotus, translucent as glaze, pink petals holding dew, golden stamens releasing fragrance. Speaking of which, didn't the system give a notification just now? If there really was such a client. Heh, I wonder if it's too late to accept now. It's mainly those feet. Current target, Zhuge Yun activated. Current favorability, 25%. Host, please increase target's favorability as soon as possible to obtain greater rewards. Huh, hey. Fu Hang shot up from the ground, jumping high. No way. How could you do this? Couldn't you tell the context of what I just said? I was just musing aloud, and I phrased it as a question, right? I wasn't even asking you, okay? I already refused. I'm really busy right now, alright? Ying Yanin is stuck because of a bug. You don't care. Shen Qingluan is missing. You don't care. Li Weiyang being stuck at 95. 49% is basically a bug too, right? You don't fix all these problems, and you take me seriously when I'm just muttering to myself? I'm begging you. Act like a human for once. I'm a workhorse, not a stud horse. If you keep doing this, you'll lose all your followers. Old tasks aren't completed, and new ones keep piling up. The audience will get aesthetic fatigue. Fu Hang was so agitated he was practically jumping up and down, shadowboxing the air. He almost unleashed his Qingluan profound art. In the distance, Zhuge Yun's test singing abruptly stopped. She looked in terror at the gesticulating man who was her boss, the one holding the purse strings. Is he going to retaliate? Will I be silenced? Fu Hang raged for a full 10 minutes, and just as they might have wished, the work crew session was interrupted. All the staff stared in bewildered surprise at Fu Hang outside the door. A man nearly 2 meters tall had a conflicted expression, his fists clenching and unclenching. He felt that this was his cue to step in, to go up and spar a few rounds with the boss, because it's hard to test the lethality of moves against thin air. But then, he later heard from his colleague. Yes, they were colleagues now. He'd heard his colleague mention that the boss had once taken on 5 guys, all with skills comparable to his own, and to this day, they still hadn't figured out how those 5 had been sent flying. So should he go, or not? Unfortunately, the company had been expanding too quickly lately and was severely short-staffed. Only he had come this time. If a few more had come, they could have probably given the boss a good workout. He reproached himself and glanced around, noticing Xia Xiaofeng and the manager were inside, fixing the wall, not outside. Otherwise, Manager Xia would have known whether he should step in or not. Fu Hang went from extreme agitation to complete stillness in just 0.02 seconds. One moment he was practically doing a wild dance routine. The next he was back on the steps, his eyes fixed gravely on the terrified Zhuge Yun. The sudden silence was unsettling, especially combined with the look in his eyes. Zhuge Yun trembled all over. Is it coming? So, I couldn't escape it after all? Is he going to use that chaotic cloak fist technique he was just demonstrating on me personally? Fu Hang, expressionless, raised his hand and beckoned to Zhuge Yun with a finger. Zhuge Yun, however, didn't step forward. Instead, she instinctively retreated 2 steps, her gaze involuntarily shifting to the 2-meter-tall giant. Hurry up and go over there. Fong Tiandai appeared from nowhere, took Zhuge Yun's hand, and, smiling like a blooming peach blossom, led her towards Fu Hang. Is she the Zhuge Yun you mentioned before? As the two approached, Fu Hang ignored the nervous Zhuge Yun, instead looking coldly at Fong Tiandai. Yes, she's a child with immense potential. I remember you said she was with Huana Entertainment, right? Fu Hang interrupted her. The contract has been sorted out. She's with our Weiyang Entertainment now. One of us. Fu Hang tilted his head, his gaze coolly appraising Zhuge Yun from top to bottom. That look made Zhuge Yun's skin crawl. It was as if she were back in the private room. Zhuge Yun tensed, her toes curling and gripping the ground. This movement caused the vamp of her embroidered shoes to bulge slightly. The Grandmaster's keen perception caught this detail, and his Adam's apple bobbed. Pervert! Fu Hang cursed inwardly. How long will it take you to make her famous? Fu Hang turned his head, no longer looking at Zhuge Yun. Mr. Fu, you must be joking. With your songs to support her and the Ganlu milk tea promotional platform, it's only a matter of time before she becomes popular. Fong Tiandai suddenly trailed off, because Fu Hang's eyes showed dissatisfaction. You don't seem to understand what I mean, Fu Hang prompted. To build popularity, it mainly depends on the platform. If we need Xiaoyan to get famous quickly, we can use short video platforms, then have her participate in some variety shows, and if resources allow, she can also get some exposure by appearing in drama productions. I want her to become a superstar within a year. The dissatisfaction in Fu Hang's eyes was even more apparent, but his words left Fong Tiandai speechless. She opened her mouth, wanting to remind Fu Hang that he might not understand the caliber of a superstar. But then she suddenly remembered Fu Hang's songs. He clearly wasn't a clueless newbie to the entertainment industry, was he? Think bigger. To make her a superstar in a year, what needs to be done? The fastest way is to participate in variety shows. That's currently the quickest route to gain popularity. It's just that there don't seem to be any good variety shows lately. Secondly, join film crews, major ones. Big productions get more attention. Of course, her own work is also very important. She needs to continuously release well-received singles or albums. Fong Tiandai's mind raced. Regardless of whether Fu Hang was serious, she treated it as her boss testing her professionalism. Then let's do that. Today is Wednesday. Next Monday, come see me in Hansheng. I want to see a complete proposal. Fu Hang lowered his head and put a cigarette between his lips, but didn't light it immediately, looking cool. You need to think bigger. If there are no suitable variety shows, we'll create one ourselves, tailor-made for her. As long as she can become famous, that's all that matters. Don't hesitate to invite any supporting actors and artists you need. Fong Tiandai's expression froze for a moment. Do you know how much it costs to launch a new variety show? And you want it to be a hit? You can tap into your old connections to put together a production crew, Fu Hang said calmly. But there's one condition. She gets the female lead. If the role fits, we'll join the production with investment. Let them name the price. If you can't find a fitting role, then find a script. We'll build the team ourselves. He pulled out a lighter with a smooth motion. A flame flickered to life, illuminating the sharp lines of his jaw. Fong Tiandai blinked, trying to process all that. Wait a minute. Is this guy seriously sweet-talking that girl with this kind of pipe dream? Is he trying to seduce her with false promises? Some backroom deal? This pie in the sky is ridiculous. Boss. As for the songs, record this one first, Fu Hang continued. Next Monday when you come in, I'll have an album ready for her. If she can keep up with the schedule, we could do an album a month until she becomes a queen. Boss. Fong Tiandai couldn't hold back anymore. If you keep talking like this, I'm going to die of secondhand embarrassment. If I don't stop you now, I'll look completely unprofessional. Fu Hang's face darkened as he was interrupted. All that you're talking about, the cost and the return aren't going to balance out, Fong Tiandai said carefully. Broaden your perspective. I don't care about return. I just want her to blow up. Remember, if money can solve it, then don't waste time. Money won't be your obstacle. Fong Tiandai was stunned. I'll set up a dedicated department in the company with a special budget. You'll get 2 billion up front. If that's not enough, ask me for more. Fu Hang stubbed out his barely smoked cigarette, stood up smoothly, hands in his pockets, and strode steadily toward the parking lot. Zhuge Jun's brain was completely short-circuited. She stared in a daze at Fu Hang's back. Why? Why does he look kind of hot right now? Sigh. Too bad he's a guy. Xiao Jun. Fong Tiandai finally came back to his senses. Special fund? 2 billion? And he's willing to give more? He's dead serious? Zhuge Jun was startled back to reality. What exactly happened between you two in that room? Fong Tiandai's eyes burned with ambition. A diva? Not the little kind. An actual diva? I, Fong Tiandai, am finally going to launch a real queen of pop? If we really go all in with no regard for cost, with Xiao Jun's talent, she could go far. Nothing happened. Wait, how do you know about me? Zhuge Jun shivered. Do you understand what the boss just said? Do you get what that means? She fell silent. A diva? Within a year? Xiao Jun, do you remember what I told you on day one? Fong Tiandai placed both hands on her shoulders, looking at her with rare seriousness. Making money isn't shameful. His tone was solemn. But Zhuge Jun's face twisted with mixed emotions. Do you know what those so-called divas had to sacrifice behind the scenes? How many compromises and how much effort it took for them to shine? She bit her lip and lowered her head. Honestly, it's not that different between men and women, Fong Tiandai said softly. Close your eyes and endure. It'll pass. Zhuge Jun's head snapped up. You think I don't use the internet? It's very different. Thank you. Xiao Jun. Making money isn't shameful. Her eyes gradually lost focus. Then, deep in her narrow eyes, a blazing fire ignited. Yeah, this is the entertainment industry. This is capital. I knew it from day one. And maybe, I'm lucky, maybe I only need to compromise this once. He's actually kind of handsome. Sigh. Too bad he's a guy. Fu Heng drove his new car home, bored out of his mind. The feeling of prepping a big move and then canceling it last minute really sucked. Worse, he realized he was really slipping. All the way home, everything he saw reminded him of feet. Damn it. Capitalism is corrupting me faster than I expected. He needed to get home fast, back to the place that could revive his revolutionary spirit. His base camp. He needed his most trusted advisor to re-educate him, help him snap out of it, pull back before he went off the deep end. As for this sudden new client, no. 7. He already had a full strategy worked out. No more messing around. Just throw money at it. Blast her straight to 90%. Move directly into phase 2. He realized this was how the game was meant to be played. He'd been limited before. By being poor. Get her to 90% with money, build up enough cash back, then move on to the emotional storyline. Take her down in one clean sweep. Perfect finish. As for phase 1, no need for some desperate simp to show up personally. I returned still the same young man, not a single shred of change. He hummed an inspirational tune as he turned into his base camp. But as he got out of the car, he paused. Huh, someone else rich lives here? Next to his parking spot was a black MBH. Through the window, he could see a burly driver inside. Fu Heng curled his lip. If my GT900 was parked here, would you even dare to show off? With a swagger in his step, he headed upstairs like he owned the world. But when he opened the door, he froze. There were guests in his house. In the tidy living room, Qin Yuchu was entertaining a classy-looking middle-aged woman. The woman was dressed professionally, but her hairstyle and makeup clearly showed the touch of a dedicated stylist. The atmosphere was weird. Both women, especially the older one, had red eyes, as if they'd just been crying. You're back. Qin Yuchu smiled when she saw him, quickly walked over, and handed him his slippers. Fu Heng's brow furrowed slightly. In that brief moment when she bent down, he caught a flicker of panic in her eyes. Who's this? Before he could say more, the red-eyed woman on the couch stood up and looked at him in surprise. This is Fu Heng, my boyfriend, Qin Yuchu said, standing timidly by his side. The woman's frown deepened. Her gaze turned stern, especially when her eyes fell on Fu Heng's slippers. There was a chill in her stare. Who the hell is this? Fu Heng muttered while changing shoes. Giving me attitude in my own home? Do you know what happened to the last diva? Who tried that? She got tossed out. The pretty boy before her? Still drooling in the hospital. And the ones overseas? Their graves are practically landmarks now. She said she's my mom. Fu Heng snapped his head around, eyes locking onto her. Qin Yuchu bit her lip. Her expression was complicated. She got out. Fu Heng's eyes glinted with cold rage. So that bald bastard lied about doing an extra day to make up for it? Time to do some math on what leave with 9 and return with 13 really means. No, not her. My real mom. Fu Heng froze. Your real mom. He looked carefully at the middle-aged woman. The resemblance was striking. 7/10? No, more like 9/10. She was basically a middle-aged version of Qin Yuchu. Real. Mother-in-law?